Chapter 378. In the sky, black clouds rolled furiously, as if a giant city was pressing down from the sky. How thick and high were these clouds? Anyway, all the fishing boats nearby that were still in the air had landed. Some people directly withdrew their boats into the sea. After all, it was not a joke to be struck by lightning. 10,000 kilometers away, on the top floor of the two dragon boats, the two hanging fishers were stunned to see the heavy rain suddenly falling from the sky, and the wind was surging and the clouds were surging. Huh? Why did the weather change all of a sudden? Is it related to the seaborne grassland? On Han Fei's side, the wind and waves were getting stronger and stronger, rolling hundreds of meters high. Although not fatal to these dangling fishers, the fishing boats were really difficult to control. Even if these people escaped into the sea, they didn't dare to approach where Han Fei was. The reason was that the dozens of fishing boats around Han Fei were empty. They were not fools. Where did the people go? They were all dead. This doomsday-like awakening made those who came later only dare to stay 100 kilometers away, not daring to try to approach. Rumble, but no matter what happened outside, Han Fei had been disfigured by the lightning. He was more and more sure that the void fishing art was the most taboo technique. Just restoring it would cause chaos in the world, and the waves would spread for thousands of kilometers. This was only the 4th level. What would happen later? In the eyes of ordinary people, the changes in the weather might be just an irregular storm in the sea. However, in the eyes of some people, it was even more profound. In the 1,000-star city, another strong master pinched his fingers and seemed to be calculating something. And in the sea, Han Fei was almost wrapped in spiritual energy into a ball of light. Violent energy was surging in his body. For example, his meridians should have been slowly strengthening, but when the lightning flowed into his body, many meridians were torn violently, causing Han Fei to bleed all over his body. Han Fei felt that he was almost out of blood. His clothes had long been destroyed, and his hair and eyebrows were all charred. Not to mention his hair, some parts of his flesh were collapsing. Fortunately, the power of the indestructible body was also reflected at this time. The more fiercely the lightning struck, the more the seemingly inexhaustible vitality surged out of his flesh and bones, trying to restore his body again and again. Bam, 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 the waves within 100 meters of Han Fei didn't stop at all. Every time the lightning struck, the surroundings would explode. Han Fei understood that. They were in the sea, not on land. The electric current would not flow into the ground, but into the sea. Anyone who had seen lightning or high-voltage electricity flowing into water knew that explosions were normal. Sometimes, an electric current could cause dozens of explosions. In Forge the Universe, the spiritual stones were crumbling one after another. But even under such a powerful bombardment, Han Fei still felt that the barrier of the indestructible body couldn't be broken. Damn it! Could it be that I really have to destroy all the meridians in my body and use my flesh and blood to bear the burden? Han Fei was very suspicious. The reason why Ren Tianfei achieved the indestructible body was that his meridians were all destroyed. But his situation was different. Since he could keep it, why destroy it? However, at this moment, Han Fei still felt that his meridians greatly suppressed the cultivation of the indestructible body. There was always a barrier that couldn't be broken. Damn it, I'm going all out. My life force is so strong that if I don't die, I'll succeed. Han Fei was no longer sitting cross-legged but rolling on the sea because of the lightning. At this moment, he struggled to grab 2 dry leaf worm grasses and stuff them into his mouth despite the tearing pain all over his body. Just by eating, a large piece of flesh on Han Fei's arm was torn off. His bones were exposed at the elbow. When the dry leaf worm grasses entered his stomach, the magnificent vitality and energy refreshed Han Fei. Of course, what greeted him was an even more violent energy blast. Rumble, rumble. Lightning struck again and again. The place where Han Fei was had been struck by lightning countless times. Huge waves of 100 meters were also raised countless times. On the periphery, Especially hundreds of kilometers away, the people who came later were shocked speechless when they saw this scene. Someone asked in shock, "Didn't they say that Han Fei appeared here? Why is this happening?" Someone responded, "Who knows? We didn't see Han Fei, but those who chased him before must have died by now." Someone sighed. Why are they still chasing him? Han Fei, as an intermediate dangling fisher, can't even resist one strike of such terrifying lightning. It seems that his name will soon disappear from the wanted list. Someone sighed. What a shame. It'd be great if we could find Han Fei's body. At least, we could exchange it for rewards. Someone was lost for words. Why do you think everybody is here? They're waiting for the bad weather to pass before they search for his body. Someone shook his head. If it were you, would you have left a body under such lightning? Not necessarily. What if he fell to the bottom of the sea earlier? That was exactly what some people thought. They had swum to the bottom of the sea at this moment. They wondered how powerful the lightning was. It couldn't have reached thousands of meters deep, could it? Many people had the same idea, so some of them swam to the bottom of the sea below the lightning. Unfortunately, in this place, as soon as someone showed his head, he was attacked by something. After all, they could only see some chains before they died. 1 hour passed. The frequency of the lightning bombardment was getting lower and lower, and the rolling waves around were slightly smaller, but no one dared to approach. 2 hours passed. The lightning had gradually stopped falling. Although the waves were still surging and the rain was still pouring, it was no longer dangerous. Someone exclaimed, "Why does the weather seem to calm down so soon? Wait. Why do I feel that this is not a natural phenomenon, but a sign of the birth of a rare treasure?" Many people began to doubt it. It didn't make sense. A while ago, there was still lightning and thunder, and the sea was bombarded. But now it had calmed down. It was not until 2.5 hours later, when everyone was sure that the lightning was no longer falling, that someone dared to move the fishing boat forward slightly. However, immediately, these people burst into exclamations. Someone. In the place where the lightning struck, someone is still alive. That's impossible. Bro, are you kidding me? Damn it, don't brag, or I'll kill you. How is it possible for anyone to survive in such a situation? Is it a fragment of a fishing boat? Everyone was talking, and hundreds of fishing boats approached. But then, they were all shocked. In the middle of the surging sea, a blackened figure was trying to sit cross-legged on the surface of the sea. Yes, that was right. He was sitting cross-legged. Next to him, there were large pieces of fishing boat debris, which seemed to have been shattered by the lightning. There were also a lot of sea creatures that had been electrocuted and were floating on the surface of the sea. Who's that? Everyone couldn't help but have such a question in their hearts. That person was blackened all over and couldn't see anything. There was no comparison at all. Someone guessed, could it be Han Fei? The guys on the wanted list can't be estimated with common sense. Someone sneered. That's bullshit. Even if we all went in, we would still be dead. Han Fei? No matter how strong he is, he's just an intermediate dangling fisher. Someone snorted. Don't forget that the turmoil at the center of the seaborne grassland may be related to him. Logically speaking, even peak-level dangling fishers could die in it, let alone Han Fei. Someone was suspicious. Do you think someone has become a hanging fisher here? Suddenly, everyone fell silent. It was highly possible. However, someone still responded in a low voice, "Do you think a hanging fisher can resist the lightning just now?" I don't think so. When everybody stopped and watched, Han Fei opened his eyes. Gotcha. The burnt shell on Han Fei's body cracked. He was very weak, but he wanted to laugh aloud. He was weak because he had taken the lightning head-on. He wanted to laugh because he had made it through. The 6 dry leaf worm grasses, the power of lightning, and a tremendous amount of spiritual energy helped him break the barrier of the indestructible body. Yes, his meridians were not broken. He had made it. The first limit of the indestructible body seemed to have been broken. Even though he was still weak at this moment, he could still feel the terrifying power in his body. Data popped up in his eyes. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 36, intermediate dangling fisher, spiritual energy greater than 12,526, 5001, spiritual heritage level 5, low quality spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 30, weapons a blue sea wandering dragon daggers, water dividing seal, blood drinking knife main art void breaking technique, volume 4 of void fishing, demon level, divine quality. Han Fei wanted to grin, but the corner of his mouth hurt and his cheeks were being torn apart. In the outside world. Swish. He cast the divine healing technique on the top of his head. Gotcha, look, it's cracked. That man is cracked. Chapter 379. The black shell on Han Fei's body was cracking like a crispy noodle biscuit. As countless people held their breath, half of Han Fei's face and half of his chest were revealed in a moment. Han Fei opened his eyes and looked around. Hundreds of fishing boats were flying in the sky and watching him. Han Fei looked down, and his face changed. He immediately took out a set of clothes and put them on. Then, spiritual energy shook, and the black shell on his body was all broken. But even so, Han Fei was slightly taken aback when he looked at his skin. He found that his skin was covered with fine cracks, and the cracks were vaguely bloody. Swish! Another divine healing technique fell on him, and Han Fei realized that something was wrong with him. Unlike last time, he was in his peak state after the lightning bombardment last time. But this time, he used 6 dry leaf worm grasses. The violent energy and vitality in his body made the energy in his body riot, causing his flesh and bones to be torn apart. Now, although he had survived, it seemed that some injuries still needed to be healed. Not just his skin, Han Fei felt that a dozen bones in his body were broken, and some muscles were torn. Of course, at this moment, Han Fei's internal injuries were healing quickly. However, the current situation, in the distance. Finally, someone exclaimed, "It's really Han Fei. He's not dead." Han Fei, someone was shocked. Who is this guy? How could he resist the lightning? Someone asked, "Guys, should we take action? This guy seems to have a big secret. Once we kill him, there may be a great opportunity for us." Han Fei was speechless. Since when did he become an opportunity in other people's eyes? Swish. Swish. Swish, nearly 40 blue sea wandering dragon daggers flew out of his body and surrounded Han Fei. Han Fei slowly opened his mouth and said, "Hey. Quite a lot of people are here." When all the blue sea wandering dragon daggers were unleashed, many people gasped. Everyone had a spirit artifact, but there was no one present who had 40 spirit artifacts and could control them with spiritual energy. Someone said solemnly, "Although we don't know how he survived the lightning bombardment, look, he seems to be an intermediate dangling fisher. He hasn't made a breakthrough." Someone reminded, "He is not only a soul warrior but also a spirit gatherer." At this moment, he seemed to be seriously injured and was treating himself. "We can't give him time to recover from his injuries. Otherwise, it will be difficult to chase after him again." More people took out their weapons. Some even possessed their spiritual beasts, and some summoned their contractual spiritual beasts. Han Fei grinned. "You want to kill me? Come down." Han Fei's plan was to frighten some people with the power of lightning. Who would have thought that apart from him, everyone else would be killed? That was why no one had seen him resist the divine might of the lightning. Therefore, the purpose of this deterrence was not achieved at all. At this moment, hundreds of fishing boats and hundreds of experts were on the scene. If it was in the past, he would have run away immediately. But now, although he hadn't recovered from his injuries, it wasn't that he didn't have the strength to fight. Han Fei even had an epiphany. He felt that he had become different. At least, among these people in front of him, although there were a few peak-level dangling fishers, the pressure they gave him was no longer there. Previously, on the dragon boat, a peak-level dangling fisher made him feel as if he was facing a formidable enemy and his life was in danger. But at this moment, the invisible barrier of the indestructible body art was broken, and the feeling of invincibility in the level 1 and level 2 fishery came back. Accompanied by Han Fei's invisible roar, the people around him became restless. Some people wanted to retreat, thinking that the people on the wanted list were quite weird. Since Han Fei dared to provoke them in front of so many people, he must have some tricks up his sleeves. Some people were disdainful, thinking that even though Han Fei was a genius, he was only one person. How could he resist the siege of so many people? Some people neither wanted to retreat nor attack. Anyway, they just wanted to stay here and watch. Maybe they would be able to benefit from the fight between the sandpiper and the clam. Han Fei, you have nowhere to go. Even if you have flash stones, since your position has been exposed, you have nowhere to escape to in this sea area. That's right, Han Fei, give me one of your spiritual weapons, and I won't embarrass you. Ha, one for each of us. I'm afraid that's not enough. Hand over your sea-swallowing seashell, and we won't attack you. The people around him were talking loudly. Some teased, some mocked, and some tempted. Han Fei glanced at those people casually and said, "You want my knife? Come and get it." With that, Han Fei sprinkled the brilliance of the divine healing technique on himself again. In the crowd, several peak-level dangling fishers couldn't sit still anymore. The peak-level dangling fishers said to each other via voice transmission, "We can't give him any more time to recover. This guy is weird. We should attack him decisively." Someone hesitated. There are so many people here. If we attack him, won't others take advantage of him? Ha! Do you think those people will just stand by and watch if the three of us take the lead? However, while these people were still discussing, on the other side, 5 or 6 people suddenly rushed forward. It turned out that a soul warrior took the lead with a bow technique, and dozens of arrows pierced through the sky and darted away. Suddenly, dozens of red vines grew out of the water and latched onto Han Fei's feet. In the distance, someone held a spear of spiritual energy and darted out. Another 3 soul warriors took action at the same time, one with a knife, one with a sword, and one with a spear. To the surprise of those peak-level dangling fishers, those advanced dangling fishers took the lead to attack. And at the same time, all the people who could use remote attacks took action one after another. Some armorists threw out torrents of knives and swords, and several soul warriors continuously shot arrows with bow techniques. Gorgeous attacks were instantly displayed on the sea. Clang, 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 the barrage of arrows, as well as the shadows of blades, spears, and swords, hit Han Fei, but they merely made clanking noises, as if they were not hitting a human body but a piece of 9-heaven black iron. Someone was dumbfounded. How is this possible? Impossible, his physique. Fuck, however, just when the next wave of arrows was about to hit Han Fei moved away with a swish. At the same time, he stomped on the ground, grabbed a spinning blue sea wandering dragon dagger beside him, and shouted, "Attach!" Hum. At that moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the sky, his golden red wings unfolded and extended to 5 or 6 meters long, and 9 chains seemed to be fastened to Han Fei's clothes, trembling in the air. Han Fei dodged most of the attacks, and only a few spiritual energy arrows had the function of automatic tracking and caught up with Han Fei after a turn. However, no matter how the spiritual energy arrows fell on Han Fei's body, there was only a tinkling sound. After the spiritual energy arrows exploded, they still couldn't hurt Han Fei at all. Hiss, many people's eyes widened, full of disbelief. Someone exclaimed in a trembling voice, "How is it possible? He can fly. How is it possible? Gudu." Many people were also stunned to see Han Fei standing proudly in the air. What was the concept of flying? They had never heard of anyone in the level 3 fishery who could fly when he was a dangling fisher. it's a contractual spiritual beast, a legendary contractual spiritual beast. Someone exclaimed in shock. What a terrifying opportunity it must be to get a legendary creature as a contractual spiritual beast. Someone said suspiciously, not good. Is he a descendant of a big family in the Thousand-Star City? Someone directly denied it. Impossible. There are too many descendants of big families in the Thousand-Star City. How many of them have a legendary contractual spiritual beast? However, someone guessed, not necessarily. How can we see those heavenly talents? This Han Fei's identity is definitely special. Someone simply retreated. Killing Han Fei was no longer what they cared about. What kind of background did Han Fei have? That was what they were worried about. If Han Fei died, the person behind him casually came out and killed them. That would be a great injustice. Shut up. This is the level 3 fishery. So what if he is a descendant of a big family? In the level 3 fishery, life and death are predestined. That's the rule. Since you've already attacked, why are you retreating now? How can you achieve anything with such a weak belief? The soul warrior who took the lead to attack scolded. It couldn't be helped. Even if they really pissed off a big shot, they had to keep these people here. At that time, who would still remember who? Han Fei was speechless. How the hell did I become a descendant of a big family? Han Fei thought disdainfully, forget it. It's good that it's a misunderstanding. It can scare some people away. Han Fei's figure quickly streaked across the sky, randomly chose a direction, and rushed directly to a 3-person fishing boat. Since you want my treasure, come on. Coward, take this. Chapter 380. Han Fei flew across the sky, and the 3 people on the fishing boat were speechless. We're just here to watch the show. Why did you choose us when there were so many people? Immediately, one of them was about to start the fishing boat to escape. However, the 9-star chain had already locked onto him. We can't escape. Let's work together to repel him. At this moment, Han Fei had already stepped on the bow of this fishing boat, and the 3 people looked horrified and quickly fused with their spiritual beasts. Their contractual spiritual beasts condensed into phantoms behind them, but before they could fight back, Han Fei had already slashed at them with the blue sea wandering dragon daggers in his hand. Kacha, one of the intermediate dangling fishers, hadn't put down his armor box yet, and his spiritual energy protective cover had been shattered. In the next second, his eyes were bloodshot, and his neck had been cut open. Another intermediate dangling fisher soul warrior thrust out his spear, and at the same time, 2 giant pincers behind him clamped at Han Fei. In front of him, there was still a knife shadow slashing at Han Fei. However, as Han Fei slashed at him, everything collapsed. In an instant, the man was cut into 2 pieces. The last person had jumped off the fishing boat and was about to escape into the sea because he was the farthest away. However, he was caught by the 9-star chain in midair, and the next moment, a golden red knife light swept past, and this person was also directly cut in half. Han Fei didn't feel the slightest guilt for killing these 3 people. On the floating island, no matter what role you played, kind, intimate, fierce. No matter what kind of person you were ready to deal with everything when you came here. Good or bad, it didn't make any sense here. Maybe some people were righteous, but they wouldn't be here. Those who could come here were all here to kill Han Fei. At that moment, Han Fei flashed in the sky, leaving golden red phantoms. Because his speed was too fast, many intermediate dangling fishers couldn't cope with him at all. If they were caught by Han Fei, they would be wiped out in 2 seconds. With such combat power, which intermediate dangling fisher dared to stay? Run, run. Han Fei's strength has definitely reached the level of a peak-level dangling fisher. Retreat, this guy is too ruthless. It'll be too late if we don't run now. This guy is too fierce. Run. Almost in a moment, dozens of fishing boats began to flee. All the intermediate dangling fishers were horrified. They felt that they couldn't fly away quickly without a pair of wings. Han Fei's combat power was too terrifying. None of the intermediate dangling fissures was a match for him. Who could afford to fight him? Han Fei killed everyone and scared away a group of intermediate dangling fissures. The rest of the advanced dangling fissures didn't know whether to leave or stay. In fact, they all vaguely felt that although Han Fei seemed ferocious, he was attacking intermediate dangling fissures after all. Many people felt that they would not be killed with a single slash. However, just in case, many advanced dangling fissures shouted to each other, "Come on, let's kill this guy together. Go all out, don't hold back." Instigated by someone, a group of dozens of advanced dangling fissures came at him in their peak state. All of a sudden, the phantoms of various marine creatures appeared in the sky. Some of them weren't phantoms, but their real bodies. Puchi, Walla, ding ding ding. At that moment, Han Fei held a knife with both hands, and the blue sea wandering dragon daggers had been completely covered by the torrents of knives and swords of the armorists. All kinds of spiritual weapons fell on Han Fei's body, making clanking sounds. Some people didn't make a move, but they were also dumbfounded. A good hunt turned out to be like this. It felt like a group fight, however. Although some people in the crowd were in a killing frenzy, some people on the periphery saw bodies falling one after another. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Are you fucking stupid? Kill him in the sky. Can you fly? Go to the sea." However, in the crowd, only a few people who had already been in a killing frenzy chose to retreat. Most people were fighting Han Fei with their fishing boats. It was not that they were really stupid, but they saw that Han Fei's skin was cracking. Cracks covered his body, as if his body would shatter at any moment. Many people thought that Han Fei, who was already seriously injured and fighting continuously, finally couldn't hold on anymore. No one wanted to give up this opportunity. However, as they fought, some people panicked. They found that there were fewer and fewer people around Han Fei. Even though Han Fei's cracked body was already bleeding, he was still fighting. In the face of countless knives and weapons, he was not afraid at all. Unfortunately, it was too late to react at this time. Han Fei was stained with blood, and his whole body was covered in blood. He didn't know whether the blood on his body was his own or someone else's. In the past, he would have fled long ago, but this time, not only did he not run, but he also fought more and more crazily. There seemed to be a raging fire burning and boiling in his heart. "Come on. Don't you want my treasures? Don't you want my spiritual weapons? Come and kill me." Han Fei slowly landed from the sky and stood on the surface of the sea. Looking at the horrified advanced dangling fissures around him, he couldn't help but grin. "Even though I'm heavily wounded, you can't possibly defeat me." Don't believe him. His body has been cracked to such an extent. I'm afraid he is overdrawing his vitality to fight. This kind of fighting method won't last long. A peak-level dangling fissure appeared. Standing in front of everyone, he made a guess about Han Fei's current situation. The other two peak-level dangling fissures were in the other two directions, and the three of them surrounded Han Fei in a triangular formation. Another peak-level dangling fissure said, "Have you noticed that this kid has consumed too much spiritual energy? This kid has already consumed too much spirit chi. Don't be fooled by his murderous aura, he won't be able to hold on for long." In the end, the remaining peak-level dangling fissure spoke, "Everyone, listen up. Starting from the three of us, you will attack together to kill Han Fei. At that time, all the spiritual weapons and treasures on him will be distributed to you. We only want his head and his combat skills." Others might not have noticed it, but they did. Han Fei's blue sea wandering dragon daggers were too weird. It seemed to just revolve around his body and slash the enemy. In fact, the way the daggers escaped was very tricky. Besides, the moment the daggers were out, there was a strange knife light. This was definitely a very terrifying combat skill. Han Fei twisted his neck, but as a result, several cracks appeared on his neck. Fuck, Han Fei was a little speechless. These were all caused by the remaining energy in his body, which could be regarded as injuries. Although he was bluffing now, in fact, his injuries were not light. At this time, suddenly a voice came, "Why don't we run?" The voice came from the hexagon starfish. No one knew which corner it was hiding in now, but it seemed to have seen Han Fei's current appearance. Han Fei didn't respond but looked at the three peak-level dangling fishers vigilantly. Were they afraid of him? Of course not. As peak-level dangling fishers, their life-saving means and spiritual weapons were not weak at all. He had to kill them with one blow. These three people were an armorist, a manipulator, and a soul warrior. It could be said that they were two long-range attackers and one melee attacker, which had a lot of ways to attack. However, when Han Fei felt the abnormal movement of the water, a subtle smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Clatter! Suddenly, a water dungeon array appeared, and then circles of fine seaweed began to climb up Han Fei's body. This was not ordinary seaweed. Its blades not only had the ability to absorb spiritual energy, but their tips were also extremely sharp and seemed to be poisonous. At the moment when Han Fei was trapped in the water dungeon, the armorist took action. Dozens of weapons combined into a broadsword in the air and emitted dozens of knife shadows, stabbing at Han Fei from all directions. As for the soul warrior, holding a long sword, he roared 3 times in a row. Han Fei saw 3 waves of spiritual energy shining on the sword. And behind him, 9 soft tentacles stretched out, trying to tie up Han Fei. At the moment when the 3 of them took action, dozens of advanced dangling fishers also took action. Once again, the sky was full of shadows, knives and swords, and all kinds of contractual spiritual beasts swarmed at him. After 1 second, Han Fei's eyes suddenly turned cold, his body shook with spiritual energy, and he moved his feet, breaking the water dungeon array. The manipulator of the peak-level dangling fisher level changed his expression, and a massive amount of seaweed immediately grew out of the water. However, just after he did this, he was surprised to find that Han Fei actually glanced at him indifferently. That one glance caused him to feel fear in his heart, and he almost immediately gave up on attacking. However, it was too late. 3 chains stretched out from the bottom of the sea and directly buckled him. And the blue sea wandering dragon daggers in Han Fei's hand had become a kitchen knife at some point. The peak-level soul warrior was stunned for a moment. Such a short knife. Chapter 381. The soul warrior among the 3 peak-level dangling fishers was still in a state of shock. In his pupils, he only saw a knife light flashing past, and the scene in front of him disappeared one by one, and his eyes were full of blood red. He was a little confused. My sword is longer. I've stabbed him. Yes, Han Fei was stabbed by this person's sword. This person held a mid-quality spiritual weapon and attacked with all his strength, which was really powerful. Even if Han Fei broke the barrier of the indestructible body art, he couldn't block it. But although he couldn't block it, this sword didn't pierce through Han Fei, but just pierced Han Fei's shoulder and bone, which didn't hurt at all. But Han Fei's draw technique was no joke. Han Fei had enough spiritual energy, so he just needed to pour it into the knife. Even if that person had reached the peak, he would not be able to block the sure kill skill of this supreme-grade spiritual weapon. In the next moment, with Han Fei as the center, an arc-shaped knife light swept out. In an instant, the advanced dangling fishers who surrounded him froze at the same time, and in the next second, blood appeared on their bodies. At the moment they saw this knife light up, almost at the same time, dozens of figures disappeared without a trace. Including the armorist in midair, some of them even abandoned their weapons and fled. No one saw clearly where this knife light came from. They only felt that a bright knife light cut across the water, which was terrifying, and the strong killing intent made them lose the will to fight. Fight? How could they fight? With one knife, a peak-level dangling fisher and an advanced dangling fisher were killed. This hunt was no longer something they could participate in. The manipulator held by Han Fei had already crushed a flash stone. However, he only felt a pain in his neck, and a piece of flesh was torn off by something. Then, the flash stone was crushed, but the next moment, it hit an invisible barrier. In less than 2 seconds, the people around had all run away, and Han Fei slowly walked towards the man. "Spare me, Puff." Han Fei was already numb to the pain. Looking at the man's eyes that were filled with fear and indignation, Han Fei said lightly, "We're all adults. Since we've made the choice, we should be able to bear the consequences." At this moment, the hexagon starfish floated up from the bottom of the sea in horror, its big eyes full of horror. It had witnessed the entire scene. How was this still the weak youth from back then? This was clearly a demon. Han Fei twisted his neck again, but with a tearing sound, his skin cracked again. "Damn it, I have to heal myself. Let's go, Mr. Hexagon Starfish." After a while, Han Fei collected all the sea-swallowing seashells he could collect and swam in the sea with the hexagon starfish. On the dragon boat. The news of Han Fei's appearance had already spread, and no one knew who spread it. Therefore, more and more soldiers were dispatched from the dragon boats, most of whom were advanced dangling fishers. At this moment, the employment hall on the dragon boat was crowded with people, and all kinds of shouts could be heard. "Form a team to explore the seaborne prairie. Only advanced dangling fishers are accepted. An advanced dangling fisher armorist. We need 1 more to explore the seaborne prairie. We need 2 more. A hunter and a manipulator, both advanced. Come on, all hunters, hunt down Han Fei, who ranks 59th on the wanted list. This guy showed up a few hours ago. I guess he hasn't gone far yet. We still have a chance." Such shouts could be heard all the time. Of course, there were those who asked for it. The hall was in full swing, and no one thought about what to do if they died. Those who could come to this place had all gone through hell and high water. Most of their opportunities came from adventures. If they didn't die, they would eventually make it out alive. Bam! At this moment, someone suddenly bumped into the crowd at the door and came in. "Not good, not good. Something big has happened. Who the hell is yelling? What's the big deal? Why are you so panicked? Who the hell are you? What did I shout just now? I can't remember it now. Damn it. Are you out of your mind? Of course we wouldn't be here if nothing big had happened." In the blink of an eye, the young man was surrounded, and for a moment, everyone was criticizing him. The young man smiled bitterly. Don't worry, don't worry. Listen to me. That Han Fei. Can you fucking tell me or not? What happened to Han Fei? Didn't so many people go after him?" The young man took a breath and said, "They're all dead, all dead. Few of the pursuers came back alive." "Huh? What did you say? They're all dead?" "Hey, don't talk nonsense. I'm trying to form a team. Why are they all dead? Make yourself clear." The young man said in horror, "The intelligence is wrong. The wanted list has made a big mistake this time. It's true that Han Fei is an intermediate dangling fisher, but he can't rank 59th. He has to be in the top 3. Just now, the lightning fell from the sky like a natural disaster. None of the peak-level dangling fishers could resist it." Hiss! The employment hall fell into silence. The chaotic scene immediately quieted down. A bearded man asked, "Can you be responsible for what you said?" The young man said angrily, "I saw the whole process. Han Fei fought 100 enemies alone. He's a devil. His blood dyed the sea red. He's Demon Han." A coquettish woman stood out. "Did he really fight 100 enemies alone? That's impossible. He's just an intermediate dangling fisher. How can he fight 100 enemies alone?" The young man said angrily, "What do you know? Han Fei has a legendary contractual spiritual beast that can grow gold and red wings and stand proudly in the void. What do you think? Is a man on the wanted list who can cause chaos in the seaborne prairie really a simple intermediate dangling fisher?" Hiss! a legendary contractual spiritual beast. Wings on the back. Isn't that exclusive to hidden fishers? Stand proudly in the void. Damn it. Dismiss, dismiss. Let's not take this mission. The dragon boat has to give us an explanation. Aren't we going to get ourselves killed? Immediately, many teams that were planning to hunt him disbanded. The staff in the employment hall were also stunned. What the fuck do we know? We just followed the arrangement and accepted the mission. However, this mission is indeed a bit out of line. At the place where Han Fei fought just now, there were more than a dozen people standing. If Han Fei were still here, he would definitely recognize the three people in the lead. Weren't they Sun Mu, Yang Diyu, and Mo Fian? At this moment, Yang Diyu scratched his head. Oh my god, what kind of opportunity did that kid get from the big red trunk? How could it be so terrifying? Mo Fian's eyes lit up. Originally, she didn't intend to get the C token. She just wanted to get involved in this. But who knew that she would suffer such a big loss? At the big red trunk's place, except for his clothes, everything that could be stripped was stripped by Han Fei. For her, it was not as simple as the C token. She must catch Han Fei alive, then torture him again, and finally torture him again. Only Sun Mu's face was gloomy at this moment. This operation of hunting Han Fei could be said to be a huge loss. Originally, they should have been able to catch up with the battle just now. But Yang Diyu insisted on going back, saying that the bastard Han Fei must still be inside. As a result, they tried for several days at the Seaweed City wall. But because of the outbreak of the insect disaster, not only did they lose a few people, but they couldn't even take half a step in. As soon as they came back, they learned that Han Fei had already appeared outside. So they rushed over, and when they arrived, they saw this scene. As many as 50 or 60 broken fishing boats were still drifting on the sea, being slapped by the waves. The debris of some fishing boats still proved that they once existed. Under the sea, it was even more unbearable. Many people had been gnawed by the fish, leaving only a pile of white bones. The scene was very shocking. Young master, this child must have obtained some sort of heavenly opportunity. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to become so strong in such a short time. Yang Diyu asked, Sun Mu, should we chase him or not? What if we catch up with him and can't beat him? Sun Mu glanced at him coldly. Are you sure you can't beat him? Then don't chase him. Yang Diyu twitched the corner of his mouth. I want to chase him. It's none of your business. Mo Fian licked her lips and said, it's getting more and more interesting. I'm starting to like him, tsk tisk. Yang Diyu shivered. Oh, almost all the people you like are dead, right? Mo Fian glanced at him. Do you want me to like you too? Yang Diyu, Sun Mu said to his men beside him lightly, go back to the dragon boat and spread the news that Han Fei got divine weapons, extraordinary spiritual fruits, and dozens of heaven-level combat skills in the seaborne grassland. Huh? Sun Mu looked indifferent. Just go and spread the news. Yang Diyu muttered, you're so naughty. Mo Fian sighed slightly. Unfortunately, the memory about that day has been lost. Otherwise, we can at least roughly guess what happened there in the end, right? Why did only the three of us come out? Sun Mu curled his lips and said, I'm afraid that we came out alive because he didn't dare to kill us, fearing that the elders of our family would take action. With that, Sun Mu turned around. Let's stop chasing him. Yang Diyu was taken aback. Let's stop chasing him. We don't want the C token anymore. Sun Mu shook his head. This person has just gotten an opportunity and killed so many people. I'm afraid he is in a particularly peak state. If we go now, I'm afraid it will be extremely difficult to kill him. Instead, we'll get more people killed. Mo Fian smiled sweetly. Then let's wait and go to the steps into the sea. I believe that since people like him dare to go to the seaborne grassland, they will never miss the steps into the sea. Chapter 382. 5,000 kilometers away. Han Fei was lying on the deck of the wind god boat facing the sky, casting a divine healing light on himself. Then, he threw a bottle of pills into his mouth like jelly beans from time to time. These were the healing pills he found in Sun Mu's sea-swallowing seashells. They were quite effective, but they were colorful like rainbow candies. During this period, fishing boats occasionally passed by, but none of them stopped. Some people didn't know that Han Fei was here, but they didn't dare to approach him just by looking at the wind god boat. In their eyes, this boat was so beautiful that it didn't look like a boat at all. It was definitely not something that ordinary people could own. Who knew which big shot was resting here? About 6 hours later, the cracks on Han Fei's body disappeared, and the bones in his body were reconnected. At this moment, Han Fei had really reached the peak of his combat power. The upper limit of 5,001 points of spiritual energy. In this case, my physical limit has been raised again. It seems that I have to stay as an intermediate dangling fisher for a while, a level 5, low-quality spiritual heritage. Can I be considered a heavenly talent? Han Fei thought about it and didn't think so. Tang Ge had a level 7 spiritual heritage at the beginning and was taken to the Thousand-Star City. At this moment, he should be very powerful. However, since there were many people from the Thousand-Star City in the level 3 fishery, would Tang Ge come? Han Fei wondered if he should continue to upgrade his spiritual heritage or stabilize his realm after he recovered. While Han Fei was enjoying the sea breeze lazily, the huge sun had already set in the sky. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the sea surface. It was a magnificent sight. Crack! After taking the last healing pill, Han Fei was about to sit up from the deck to see if the demon purification pot could fuse a third contractual spiritual beast. Suddenly, a very creepy and gloomy laughter came from the sky and the earth. He, Han Fei suddenly got up and looked around. He felt that the sound didn't seem to be very far from him. Evil laughter. Evil shield. Ghost ship. Han Fei took a deep breath and immediately controlled the wind god boat to rush in the direction of the sound. He had too many sea-swallowing seashells. So far, he had accumulated as many as 6 sea-swallowing seashells. All the valuable things inside were taken out by him. Of course, there were even more things that he didn't like. But just because he didn't like it didn't mean others didn't like it. For example, Han Fei was not interested in any weapons below spiritual weapons, which were a burden to him. It couldn't hurt anyone in the level 3 fishery, so what was the use of it? Besides, if he sold all his sea-swallowing seashells, he would make a fortune. The sea-swallowing seashell itself was already very valuable. Of course, the price in the level 3 fishery might not be so high, but it was not cheap either. The wind god boat rushed all the way, and in less than 1,000 kilometers, Han Fei saw a huge black ship. Its size and height were almost the same as the dragon boats. Looking up, Han Fei felt that his wind god boat was as insignificant as an ant, no matter how gorgeous it was. However, this big black ship was not really black. Its main style was shabby, very shabby. Han Fei saw that the hull of the ship was covered with all kinds of shellfish, snails, barnacles, seaweed, bluestones. Even a lot of squid, octopus, and crabs were falling from the hull into the sea. Han Fei also saw that the hull was full of bumps and hollows. Some places had been simply repaired, and some places didn't even bother to be repaired at all. It felt like a broken jar that had been broken. However, like the dragon boats, the ghost ship was also engraved with arrays one after another. However, when Han Fei studied it carefully, the structure of the arrays was completely different from that of the dragon boats. The body of the dragon boats was covered with spirit absorption arrays. But what was engraved on the ghost ship seemed to be fucking killing arrays. Han Fei was speechless. The hull of the ghost ship was full of holes. How could this thing float on the sea? Could it even dive and be used as a submarine? Besides, with so many killing arrays, what kind of war was it preparing for? After Han Fei controlled the wind god boat to fly up, he saw the whole picture of the ghost ship more intuitively. Unlike the dragon boats, there was no one on the outer deck at all. The wooden floors in many places were broken, and some black clothes could be seen everywhere. Some were casually discarded on the ground, and some were hung randomly on the outer wall of the ship. On the outer wall of the cabin, there were also countless pure white masks hanging, with only 2 holes for the eyes and nothing else. This meant that you couldn't eat on the ghost ship. Because you couldn't even open your mouth, how could you eat? What was different from the dragon boat was that there were no windows here, only doors. Every few kilometers, there was a door, which seemed to lead to the inside of the cabin through the door. The ghost ship was not as high as the dragon boats, and there were only 3 floors above the deck. At the top, there were some flags that looked like sails. Han Fei guessed that this ship usually didn't sail on the sea, so the flags couldn't be sails. If they were in the ocean, they might be related to the ocean currents. Fuck. A standard ghost ship, a standard pirate ghost ship. Han Fei was quite shocked. He wondered if the people inside were wearing pirate hats. Monsters with 1 eye, hooked hands, and octopus feet. Anyway, the captain of the ghost ship always had eclectic preferences. Han Fei didn't stay long because he saw black spots appearing in the sky in the distance, which seemed to be other people who were about to board the ghost ship. Approaching the ghost ship, Han Fei put away the fishing boat and jumped onto the deck. As a result, the dangling fisher almost slipped and fell. What the fuck was this floor? The floor was full of all kinds of snails. Han Fei also saw crabs running across not far away, and octopus tentacles drilled into a broken wooden floor. What the hell is this? Han Fei picked up a black robe and was quite surprised as soon as he touched it. The material of this robe turned out to be some kind of black sand, which was quite heavy. As he moved his hands slightly, the water stains on the robe were immediately separated. The robe was as dry as if it had just been dried in the sun, and Han Fei put it on. Then he took a faceless mask from the outer wall of the cabin and put it on his face. Han Fei couldn't help but complain, this design is too shitty. The mask of a faceless man should at least leave a hole for the mouth. Can't you just leave a small hole instead of a big one? After Han Fei cleaned up, he kicked away a jumping fish under his feet, and then walked to the broken door that looked like it was made of several boards. However, when Han Fei stood at the door, he couldn't help but be taken aback. Although the door looked broken from the outside, there seemed to be another layer inside, and there was no so-called gap. Just when Han Fei wanted to push the door and go in, he found that there was no door handle. How could he get in? Han Fei tried to push the door, but the wooden door still didn't shake at all even though he exerted 1,000 kilograms of force. On the contrary, it made the door creak as if it was going to break at any moment. Knock, knock, knock. Is anyone there? Creak, as Han Fei knocked on the door was opened from the inside. It was also a faceless man who greeted Han Fei. Han Fei stepped into the door, and then a low male voice came from under the faceless man's mask. How many days? Han Fei thought for a moment. He wouldn't stay here for long, and he would probably sell out the things. Then, he would see if there was anything he needed, and then he could leave, so, he responded, 1 day, 1,000 mid-quality pearls, or something of equal value. Han Fei casually threw 1,000 mid-quality pearls into a box behind the man. The latter took out a stone plate shining with a faint light, on which the number 119 was engraved. There was no telling if it was given according to the number of people on this ghost ship. The faceless man said in a low voice, if you don't want to leave, come to any door an hour in advance and pay the money, and you can continue to stay. Otherwise, you will be forcibly expelled. Han Fei nodded slightly. Is there anyone guiding you? The faceless man didn't speak but just opened another door behind him, as if saying, go in and see for yourself. Inside the ghost ship, compared with the noise on the dragon boat, it was exceptionally quiet. Although Han Fei heard some people talking, it was just like ordinary people talking to each other, and there were not many of them, and no transactions were involved. Han Fei stepped behind the door and couldn't help but be a little speechless. There were people here, but only in twos and threes. About every tens or hundreds of meters, there were some people standing, sitting, setting up stalls, or talking. Han Fei didn't see any so-called shops here at all, but the center of the ship seemed to be hollowed out. Han Fei could still hear the sound of the waves. It seemed that the middle of the hull was directly connected to the sea. And above his head, although there were still 3 floors above, water drops were still dripping from his head from time to time. In short, the ghost ship was damp, gloomy, and gloomy. The moment Han Fei entered the door, some people within 100 meters nearby all stared at him. The person closest to Han Fei was only 5 or 6 meters away. At this moment, he was leaning against the wood of the cabin with his arms crossed, looking at him. "Hey! Is this your first time here?" Han Fei glanced at him. "How do you know?" Chapter 383. The man sounded relaxed. Han Fei could even sense the faint smile behind his mask. "The first thing you did after you came in was to observe, and you seemed quite surprised and puzzled by the situation inside the Spectre. So, what's your purpose in boarding the Spectre?" Han Fei smiled casually. "Selling things and buying things. That's all." The man looked around. "These people are all selling things. What are you selling? Do you have any good stuff?" Han Fei hesitated for a moment but still replied, "I'm selling sea-swallowing seashells and some miscellaneous items." "Ha! It seems that you've killed a lot of people to come to the Spectre to sell your sea-swallowing seashells. However, it's indeed convenient to make a move here. What about your sea-swallowing seashells? Do you have any authentic goods? Like a high-grade spirit weapon or something?" Han Fei's lips twitched. Damn high-quality spiritual weapons. How many people in the level 3 fishery had high-quality spiritual weapons? That person laughed and said, "It's fine. If you don't have it, then forget it." Actually, in this place, it was more about bartering. Mid-quality pearls were useless, and it was troublesome to change hands. "If you don't mind, can I show you around?" Han Fei asked. "What's the fee?" "Fee?" The man smiled disdainfully. "Do you think this is a dragon boat? I'm just making friends." Han Fei didn't move but said casually, "You must be joking. Everyone is wearing a mask, and you want to make friends with me? Are you kidding me?" The man slightly shook his head. "Okay. A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. Do you have any high-grade spiritual weapons, top-grade materials, or combat skills or cultivation methods above the demon level? If you do, I'll take them. Of course, you can also sell them to the Spectre, but the price will be reduced by 50%. We'll only charge a 20% commission fee for our transaction." Han Fei was slightly stunned and quite surprised. He just walked in through a random door and met a random person. How could he be so rich? A weapon of this level was definitely a high-grade item. An ultra-quality magic weapon was worth about 50,000 mid-quality pearls. How much was a high-quality spiritual weapon worth? Han Fei asked. "There are so many people on the boat. Why do I have to pay a commission fee if I make a private transaction?" The man shrugged. "You can try not to pay. Maybe you can get away with it. However, as long as they were discovered, they would definitely die. And in this Spectre ship, you don't even know where there are spies. Of course, you don't have to worry about this. We can split the processing fee as long as you have something good." Han Fei tilted his head and looked at the man. "More importantly, what do you offer in exchange?" The man narrowed his eyes and said, "Demon-level combat skills, cultivation techniques. Whatever you want, I have it all." Han Fei turned around and left, muttering, "Psycho." The person behind him was startled and quickly chased after him. "Hey, don't go. Isn't this enough?" Han Fei complained, "I hate those who pretend to be cool and brag the most. If you had these, you would have exchanged them here. If you had everything you need, would you still be in this godforsaken place? The faceless man paused and did not continue to chase. Instead, he seemed to be deep in thought. Did I blow too much? Forget it, wait for the next one. Gloomily, Han Fei walked in the huge, gloomy ghost ship. From time to time, someone offered to trade with him. For example, at this moment, a faceless man was sitting on the ground at the center of the cabin and asked in a hoarse voice, "Young man, do you want to trade something?" Han Fei asked, "How do you know that I am a young man?" The man smiled casually. "From the way you walk, the strength of your footsteps, and your hands." Han Fei stopped and shrugged, looking at him. "What do you have?" The man replied casually, "What do you want?" Han Fei thought for a moment. "I don't know." "Let's see what you can give me." The man thought for a moment and took out a green fruit. "This is the venomous tulip of the seaborne prairie. It can protect you from all poisons here." Han Fei's eyes constricted. What a big shot. He knew about the venomous tulip. He just didn't know that there was such a thing in the seaborne prairie. According to the Encyclopedia of Spiritual Plants, the venomous tulip was an antidote fruit that grew in thousands of poisonous vines. Although it had no special effects, it was definitely a top-level spiritual fruit in terms of detoxification. Once it was taken, it would be invulnerable in the level 3 fishery. Han Fei found it hard to believe that a random person had such a precious thing. Han Fei asked, "How much is it?" The man snorted. "A high-quality spiritual saber, 100 kilograms of spiritual spring, and 500,000 mid-quality spiritual pearls." Han Fei stepped back and was lost for words. "Do I look like such a rich man to you?" Unexpectedly, the man said casually, "Your saber is magnificent. I'm afraid that your weapon is more than a high-quality spiritual saber. People like you usually don't lack the other two things." Han Fei sneered. "The venomous tulip is good, but it's too expensive." "Sorry, you can wait for the next person." Han Fei refused the deal. Even if he wanted to rip someone off, he shouldn't have done it this way. However, the deal proposed by the man made Han Fei suddenly realize a problem. When he bought spiritual fruits on the dragon boat, most of them were full of spiritual energy. There was only one antidote, and it didn't work very well. But there were thousands of spiritual fruits in the sea. He never expected that the special poisonous fruits would be so expensive. Han Fei ignored other people's requests on his way to a place where people were gathered. Han Fei saw that there were hundreds of people gathered there, and faceless people were everywhere. Come to think of it, the transactions there should be much more reliable than those outside. However, when Han Fei approached, he found that there was a trading center there. Yes, it was a trading center. It occupied a large area, but the sign of the trading center was very common and could be easily overlooked. Outside the trading center, it became noisy. Someone shouted, "Anything can be exchanged for mid-quality pearls. It's 10% cheaper than the trading center." Someone shouted, "Buying low-quality spiritual weapons in bulk." Someone even raised a high-quality spiritual sword. Only for demon-level high-quality saber techniques. Han Fei was stunned. Why were so many people hawking outside the trading center? Han Fei pulled a random person and asked, "The trading center is right in front of you. Why do you want to trade outside? Go away." His response was a dissatisfied scolding. This person didn't seem to want to answer Han Fei's question at all. Han Fei frowned, squeezed through the crowd, and entered the trading center. Han Fei was slightly stunned. The scene inside was a bit like a restaurant or a bar. There were tables and chairs, but no drinks or food were provided. Many people were sitting on tables and chairs and seemed to be talking about various prices. On one of the walls, there were countless signs, each of which had a lot of information. For example, mid-quality spiritual whip, price 500,000 mid-quality pearls. Blood vine fruit, directional exchange for demon-level low-quality combat skills. Crystal mystic stone, directional exchange for mid-quality spiritual saber. High-quality spiritual saber, directional exchange for demon-level high-quality armor and combat skills. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. This was really a trading center. It was like a fucking intermediary, with all the treasures listed on it for people to choose freely. This wall was 100 meters wide and 20 meters high, with countless trading information written on it. Han Fei calculated and found that it was obviously not enough. It meant that there were many such trading centers on the ghost ship. Not far away, there were several trading counters, where as many as 30 faceless people stood behind the counters, and people went to trade from time to time. On the other hand, the people going to the other counter were all in pairs. Then, the things they paid were basically mid-quality pearls. Therefore, Han Fei knew that the counter over there should be for people to trade privately and then pay 20% tax at the counter. Han Fei shook his head slightly. It wasn't that he didn't want to take out all his sea-swallowing seashells for personal exchange, but he really had too many sea-swallowing seashells. Besides, there were a lot of messy things in his sea-swallowing seashells. It was very troublesome to trade with people. But the ghost ship itself, even if the price was 50% lower, didn't they say that they wouldn't ask or care about anything? Han Fei saw that high-quality spiritual weapons were being sold here casually. If he sold his sea-swallowing seashells, he wouldn't be coveted by the owner of the dragon boat, right? Thinking for a while, Han Fei walked to the counter. I want to sell something. Do you accept it here? The trader behind the counter nodded slightly and then immediately said, yes, I accept any item, but the price is only 50% of the original price. Han Fei nodded. I need someone to count them. The faceless man who was responsible for receiving Han Fei made a gesture of invitation, pointing at the tables in the hall. Han Fei was surprised. Right here. However, the faceless man said, right here. It doesn't matter. Frowning, Han Fei followed her and then followed her. When he sat down on the chair, an invisible barrier rose around him, and all the sounds from the outside world disappeared. The faceless man opposite him said, this place is soundproof. Now you can tell me what you want. Chapter 384. Han Fei felt that this deal was a bit absurd. Wasn't it too casual? What if he took out something as valuable as the big red trunk to trade? Wouldn't everyone be able to see it? As if knowing what Han Fei was wondering, the faceless man opposite Han Fei said, don't worry. So what if they see it? Here, no one knows who you are. If you are afraid of being targeted, we can provide a backdoor service. You can walk out of the exclusive darkroom for only 1,000 mid-quality pearls. Then no one will know which faceless man is you. Han Fei was slightly taken aback. This has to be based on the premise that the specter is absolutely fair, right? The faceless man opposite him nodded. Those who can come to the specter do so because they have absolute trust in us. In the level 3 fishery, something may happen to the dragon boat, but in the specter, nothing will happen. Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief, took out a sea-swallowing seashell, and said, sea-swallowing seashell, how much is it worth? The faceless man opposite him was slightly taken aback. Just one sea-swallowing seashell. The minimum transaction price for those who come to the negotiating table must be no less than 500,000 mid-quality pearls. One sea-swallowing seashell may not be enough. Although this man said so, he had already picked up Han Fei's sea-swallowing seashell in his hand. His right hand was still calculating, and after about 10 minutes, he gently put down the sea-swallowing seashell and then said lightly, there are many worthless things in it. This sea-swallowing seashell is worth 200,000 mid-quality pearls. If you sell it to us, it will be worth 100,000 mid-quality pearls. Do you have more? Han Fei glanced around. He didn't think these people would care about sea-swallowing seashell. In fact, the people who could appear on the specter to trade didn't seem to be ordinary people. All of them seemed to have rare treasures. Han Fei grabbed another 5 or 6 sea-swallowing seashell and said, let's calculate again. An hour later. The faceless man opposite Han Fei was speechless. How many sea-swallowing seashell has it been? He had already calculated 0. Although the things in each sea-swallowing seashell were not particularly powerful. However, the level of the sea-swallowing seashell that Han Fei offered seemed to be getting higher and higher. In the end, the sea-swallowing seashells he gave out were all top-level materials, even ultra-quality ones. When the faceless man put down the third sea-swallowing seashell, he took a deep look at Han Fei. Now, the total price has reached 12 million mid-quality pearls. That's 20.06 million mid-quality pearls. Han Fei slightly grinned. That's so damn profitable. However, Han Fei knew that it would be best to sell the sea-swallowing seashells to the spectre. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't be able to sell it at all, because no one lacked it. The people who came here were all here to try their luck and buy good things. Who would want to look at some trash? Han Fei nodded with a smile. Yes. At the same time, I'd like to ask if there are any spells that can change one's appearance? The faceless man on the other side thought for a moment. Yes, but it's only at the spirit level. It's worth 8 million. Pfft, Han Fei almost slapped him. I sold more than 80 sea-swallowing seashells for only 20 million. You want to sell a spirit-level spell book for 1 million? The faceless one said, there are too many dangerous people on the Spectre ship. As long as the Spectre ship goes out to sea, there will be dozens or even hundreds of people asking about the spell that can change one's appearance. What I recommend to you is the best disguise technique that I know of. Han Fei was speechless. The best is only at the spirit level? The man said, there are many disguise spells, but most of them can only change the wriggling of the flesh and blood on the face or cover the face with illusions. It's just a bunch of low-level spells. The spell I recommend can move your muscles and bones, change your body temperament, and make you look like a completely different person. Han Fei shook his head. No, I want those cheap ones. Just find any cheap one and give it to me. Huh? Are you sure? Han Fei nodded. I'm very sure. Han Fei thought to himself, I worked so hard to earn money. How can I let you take it back so easily? As for the quality of the spell, well, I have plenty of spiritual energy now. I just need to deduce it a few more times. Do you think I can't deduce it? Sure enough, the faceless man nodded. Okay, any level is fine. Han Fei nodded. Anything is fine. After this series of transactions, the faceless man made a gesture, and someone immediately came over. The two faceless men talked for a while, and soon, in less than 5 minutes, the item was delivered. After the transaction, Han Fei felt refreshed, and the garbage on his body was finally cleaned up. In the end, he got a mystic level, mid-quality spell called Camouflage. However, Han Fei was quite surprised by the price. A mystic level, mid-quality spell was sold for 1 million mid-quality pearls. Han Fei thought that a spell of this level might have been randomly picked up from a garbage dump. However, even so, Han Fei still got 19.06 million mid-quality pearls. Plus the mid-quality pearls from the sea-swallowing seashells, he had now become a millionaire with a net worth of 25.6 million. Damn it. If I want to make money, I have to come to the level 3 fishery. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. When he was on the dragon boat, he only sold hundreds of thousands of mid-quality pearls, and he was targeted. Look at the spectre, rich and overbearing. Any staff member could make a transaction worth tens of millions of yuan. In contrast, the dragon boat was simply garbage in Han Fei's eyes at this moment. Of course, Han Fei couldn't help but wonder what kind of person the owner behind the spectre was. Since such a person could withstand the pressure from the dragon boat, why did he need to make money in a place like the level 3 fishery? Since he couldn't figure it out, Han Fei simply stopped thinking about it. It could be said that his purpose of boarding the spectre this time had been achieved. However, since he had a huge sum of money, he naturally had to go shopping and see what was sold here. He might not care about other things for the time being, but he had to prepare at least hundreds of flash stones. Although there were already 70 or 80 flash stones in his sea-swallowing seashell. But he didn't mind having too many things to escape with. If he encountered a place like the Seaweed City Wall, the flash stones would come in handy. On the wall, Han Fei looked at the shelves one by one, including the spiritual weapon section. Although he already had a suitable spiritual weapon, this didn't prevent him from looking around. What if he met a suitable spiritual weapon? Unfortunately, after looking around, Han Fei didn't find any spiritual weapon that was suitable for him. However, he saw a large number of spiritual fruits hanging on the shelves, and the number was very large, as many as 500. Among them, according to the function standard of spiritual fruits, there were breakthrough spiritual fruits, that is, spiritual fruits containing high spiritual energy. There were also detoxification fruits, which could strengthen the body, and increase spiritual power. Han Fei was quite surprised. When he was on the dragon boat, after eating more than 30 spiritual fruits, he only felt that the practical significance of spiritual fruits was not as great as he imagined. But even if the effect of spiritual fruits was not that great, they were still spiritual fruits. If he ate too much, it would also cause the spiritual energy and other aspects of the body to be enhanced. Here, most spiritual fruits could be bought with mid-quality pearls, and only a few rare spiritual fruits would be exchanged for equivalent value. In front of this wall, although there was no counter, there were a few faceless people standing against the wall. Whenever someone wanted to make an exchange, they would communicate with these people. Han Fei also found one at this moment. He simply stepped forward and said, "I want to buy spiritual fruits. I'll take all of them." "Huh? All of them?" Han Fei nodded. The spiritual fruits here were each priced around 1,500 mid-quality pearls, and the slightly better ones were up to 5,000 at most. There were only 3 that were priced as high as 10,000 mid-quality pearls. One was called Magic Barrier Fruit, priced at 50,000 mid-quality pearls, which was not expensive. After taking this spiritual fruit, the user would have the ability to resist illusions. As for the effect, Han Fei didn't know. One was called Poison Gathering Grass, priced at 10,000 mid-quality pearls. To be precise, it was not a spiritual fruit but an edible marine herb. If someone was poisoned later, they could take it and forcibly gather poison. Then, if they were strong enough, they could expel the poison out of their body. It was a disposable spiritual herb. Another was called Heavenly Spirit Jujube, priced as high as 500,000 mid-quality pearls. It was the most expensive of all the spiritual fruits. Because this spiritual fruit was extremely rare, it was said that it could permanently improve the spiritual power of the user, but Han Fei didn't know exactly how much. But in any case, Han Fei was happy to spend money on something that could improve his spiritual power with money. However, when Han Fei was about to pay, he found that the information of the Heavenly Spirit Jujube had been erased. Han Fei immediately said, "Hey, I'll buy that Heavenly Spirit Jujube." "Why is it gone?" The faceless person said, "Someone was faster than you." Something like this that could permanently increase one's mental strength was extremely rare. Usually, they're gone in no more than 100 seconds. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Who was competing with him? However, Han Fei still said in a hurry, "Then hurry up. I'll take all of them." Chapter 385. The trading hall suddenly fell silent because everyone found that all the spiritual fruits on the trading wall had disappeared. It wasn't like no one had done this before. But at most, there were only dozens or hundreds of spiritual fruits on the trading wall. But this time, all the spiritual fruits disappeared, which was the first time. Someone was speechless. Which idiot? Why did he buy all the spiritual fruits at once? A faceless man rolled his eyes. Even if you're rich, you can't do this. When Han Fei paid, everyone turned to look at him, wondering if they should rob him or not. Han Fei didn't care about other people's attention. "What do you know?" There are so many spiritual fruits here. I can't miss it no matter what. Of course, Han Fei was the only one here who thought so. After all, no one could eat spiritual fruits as if they were jelly beans like he did without causing the spiritual energy to dissipate. Han Fei smacked his lips. More than 500 spiritual fruits cost him nearly 3 million mid-quality pearls. This price was quite expensive. An ordinary spiritual fruit on the dragon boat was only about 800, but the price here was more than double. But Han Fei was willing to buy it on the dragon boat. If he left the boat, wouldn't he be chased by countless people? Han Fei accepted the spiritual fruits and looked at the staff. How many trading halls are there on the boat? The staff was stunned for a moment. Do you think it's not enough? Do you still want to buy more? However, since the customer wanted it, he was happy to explain. He immediately replied, there are a total of 12 trading halls. You can walk around them and you'll eventually finish them. Han Fei nodded. What about the upper 2 floors? Where are those? The staff didn't hide it. There is only 1 floor above. The top floor is not open to the public. Oh. What is the upper floor for? The staff explained, it's the place of intelligence. There, you can buy all the intelligence you want to know. Of course, it may not be complete, but it's definitely more complete than the dragon boat. Han Fei nodded slightly, a little surprised. Does the Spectre also do intelligence? However, it only has 1 ship. How can it do intelligence? Even if the Spectre can send spies to each dragon boat, how can it gather all the intelligence together? After all, when it came to intelligence, it was all about timeliness. After a certain time, intelligence would be meaningless. In any case, Han Fei decided to visit the other 11 trading halls first. However, as soon as he walked out of the trading hall, he stopped. According to the number of spirit fruits in this trading hall, he might not be able to buy all 11 of them. At most, he would only be able to buy 6 or 7 of them before his wallet would be empty. Han Fei was lost for words. The ghost ship was indeed more expensive than the dragon boat. I have more than 20 million in my hands, but it's not even enough for a tour of the ship. Calculating the number of mid-quality pearls he had, it took him 6 hours to visit the other 11 trading halls. However, this time, he did not buy all of them. Basically, he picked out half of them and bought them. Even so, after visiting 11 trading halls, Han Fei only had 100,000 mid-quality pearls left. He couldn't help but be speechless. Buying things was really burning money. Of course, the result was completely out of everyone's expectations. After a round of shopping, the number of spiritual fruits on him had reached more than 4,600. During the 6 hours, the trading halls went crazy. Everybody knew that a rich man had come to the Spectre and was buying spiritual fruits. Those who came earlier and those who came later all stuffed their spiritual fruits into the trading halls, hoping that Han Fei would buy all the spiritual fruits at once. Unfortunately, when the spiritual fruits in the trading halls were full again, Han Fei stopped buying. Immediately, many people were infuriated. Because Han Fei did not deliberately hide his traces, many people simply came up to him and shouted, "Why did you stop buying spiritual fruits?" Han Fei was lost for words. What does it have to do with you whether I buy spiritual fruits or not? Someone trembled in fury under the mask. Does this asshole not know that there's a fee for putting spiritual fruits in the trading halls? Someone threatened, "Brat, you'd better not let me know who you are. Otherwise, I won't spare you." Han Fei blinked his eyes and scratched the mask on his face with his fingers. Then he tilted his head and looked at those people. "Fortunately, you don't know who I am." Everyone, at this moment, the person who offered to sell Han Fei the venomous tulip walked up and spoke to Han Fei telepathically, "Venomous tulip, do you still want it?" Surprised, Han Fei replied, "You recognized me?" The man chuckled hoarsely. "You have an awe-inspiring knife intent. It's hard for me not to recognize you. If you don't remove the saber intent on your body, many of these people will recognize you." Han Fei slightly narrowed his eyes. To be honest, your venomous tulip is the best one in the 12 trading halls. However, I don't have the money to buy your venomous tulip now. You know that I've bought a lot of goods. The man said telepathically, a high-quality spiritual saber, 100 kilograms of spiritual spring, and 200,000 mid-quality spiritual pearls. Han Fei was lost for words. Although I like your spiritual fruit, you've only asked for 300,000 mid-quality spiritual pearls less. Is the price any different from before? The faceless man was lost for words. I've already lowered the price by 300,000 mid-quality pearls, and you call it the price no different from before? Seeing that the man was silent, Han Fei said telepathically, you refused to trade inside because you knew that the venomous tulip couldn't be sold at such a high price. I admit that the venomous tulip is good, but ordinary people don't know it at all. Even if they do, they won't know if the venomous tulip is as valuable as it's rumored to be until they take it. To put your venomous tulip in the trading hall, other people will offer a mid-quality spiritual weapon and 1,000,000 mid-quality pearls at most. It's hard to say whether they will give you the spiritual spring or not. Han Fei was not panicked at all. While talking, he immediately walked to the entrance of the second floor. Wait a minute. A high-quality spiritual saber and 100 kilograms of spiritual spring. Han Fei shook his head. I have a high-quality spiritual saber, but only 50 kilograms of spiritual spring. If you sell it, we'll trade. If you don't, forget it. I have a lot of spiritual fruits anyway. The faceless man said angrily, none of them is as good as the venomous tulip. Han Fei smiled. But I have a lot of them. The man was speechless. He had nothing to say. This guy had bought all 12 trading halls. It seemed that he didn't need any venomous tulip at all. The man gritted his teeth and said, deal. We'll split the commission. A moment later, Han Fei really became a pauper after he came out of the trading hall. The deal was definitely not small. He underestimated the value of a high-quality spiritual weapon in the level 3 fishery. It was true that his saber was robbed from the armorist who tried to kill him a few days ago. However, the spiritual spring and mid-quality pearls were both his. Just 10% of the commission cost nearly 500,000 mid-quality pearls, which made his heart ache. However, the faceless man probably felt the same. He asked for 1,000,000 mid-quality pearls not because he wanted money, but because he wanted the buyer to cover the commission. Of course, Han Fei didn't regret it. Although the venomous tulip and the spiritual spring were only worth 5,000,000 mid-quality pearls, it was actually far more than that. In fact, many people knew the value of the venomous tulip, but it was useless if they couldn't afford it. Or rather, those who could afford it were unwilling to pay such a high price for a chance. Han Fei was so extravagant because he felt that it was too easy to make money in the level 3 fishery. At least in the eyes of others, Han Fei was a spendthrift. Next to every trading hall on the Spectre, there was a staircase not far away, which was convenient to go to the second floor. When Han Fei walked up to the second floor, he found that the scene on this floor was quite similar to the first floor, except that the trading hall had been replaced by an intelligence hall. Han Fei didn't know if there were 12 intelligence offices in this place too. He didn't intend to stroll around but went straight to the nearest intelligence hall. However, when he was about to enter the door, 2 faceless men blocked his way. To enter the intelligence hall, you need to pay 100,000 mid-quality pearls or something of equal value. Han Fei? Han Fei didn't know what to say. Wherever he went, he had to pay. The way the Spectre made money was much more ruthless than the dragon boat. Having no choice, Han Fei could only take out another 100,000 mid-quality pearls. He pondered that if he wanted to buy information at this rate, he might not even have enough money on him. However, when Han Fei paid the money, the faceless man handed him a fish skin map and said, "This is part of the past intelligence, free of charge." Han Fei was surprised. So good. This was definitely the first fucking benefit he got on the Spectre. Past intelligence was still intelligence. It would be a waste if he didn't take it. Entering the intelligence hall, Han Fei looked around and found one private room after another. At the door of each private room, a faceless man stood. Han Fei randomly picked one and asked, "How much is the intelligence? Please come in." Chapter 386. The intelligence office was obviously of a higher standard than the trading office. Why? Because the intelligence was more confidential. If there were too many people, why would he need to read the intelligence? Han Fei and the faceless man looked at each other, only to hear the voice of a woman. "What intelligence do you need, Your Excellency?" Han Fei was about to ask Xia Shaochan and the others, but on second thought, the intelligence of the spectre was not trustworthy yet, so Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "I want to ask about Han Fei." The woman wasn't surprised but opened a small window behind her. On the other side of the window, someone seemed to be communicating with her. After about 10 seconds, the woman seemed to have learned something. So she looked at Han Fei and said, "Although Han Fei appeared nearby a few days ago, the price of his intelligence has risen from 500,000 mid-quality pearls to 5 million. Do you still want to know?" 5 million? Han Fei was speechless. Have I become so fucking expensive? The bounty on the wanted list is only 500,000, isn't it? Dumb. While Han Fei was hesitating whether or not to ask, someone knocked on the small window behind the faceless woman. After about 10 seconds, the faceless woman looked at Han Fei weirdly. "Your Excellency Han Fei, you're very lucky. My boss said that it's quite interesting for you to ask about yourself. So, the intelligence about yourself is free." Hiss, Han Fei suddenly stood up. "Do you know who I am?" The faceless woman smiled casually. "Don't panic. Do you still want to know?" Han Fei was shocked. Was he discovered so easily? Did she know who he was the whole time? What if he was used by someone with ulterior motives? At this moment, Han Fei became vigilant. He couldn't stay on the spectre any longer. He had to leave as soon as possible. But now that things had come to this point, Han Fei could only sit down. After all, if the other party wanted to attack him, they would have done it a long time ago. Why would they ask him to go to the trading office to buy goods? The faceless woman said calmly, "Han Fei, male, 15 years old, intermediate dangling fisher." Han Fei, a male, 15, intermediate dangling fisher. Contractual spiritual beast of exotic mantis shrimp, suspected to be legendary unknown creature. Contractual spiritual beast, exotic mantis shrimp, suspected to be legendary unknown creature. Origin, Thug Academy, Blue Sea Town, below the 1,000-star city. Brief Story 1, he made his debut in the black market of the Dragon Boat. He killed 3 experts of the same level with one sword strike and forced his way out of the Dragon Boat. As a junior dangling fisher, he survived the attacks of 4 peak-level dangling fishers and killed 2 of them. Brief Story 2, according to Brief Story 1, Han Fei offended the Sun family of the 1,000-star city because he obtained the sea token, so he was hunted. Brief Story 3, Han Fei was hunted down and forced to enter the Seaborn Prairie. He is suspected to have something to do with the disappearance of the Big Red Trunk and is suspected to be the instigator of the turmoil in the Seaborn Prairie. Brief Story 4, a few days ago, he killed more than 100 dangling fishers in a battle less than 20,000 kilometers away from the Seaborn Prairie. Some people call him Demon Han. The faceless woman looked at Han Fei. Comprehensive evaluation, your ranking on the wanted list may be updated soon. I predict at least top 5. On the other side, the faceless woman was talking about Han Fei. That was just a brief account. There was a long list of suspicions and speculations about the spectre itself. Han Fei was dumbfounded and felt a chill on his back. Gudu. Seeing that Han Fei's eyes were about to pop out, the faceless woman said calmly, "Rest assured, the spectre has its own rules. As long as you're on the spectre, no matter who you are, what you've done, and what opportunities you've obtained, it has nothing to do with us. We won't do anything outrageous to you. Han Fei felt that his heart was pounding crazily. After a long time, he struggled to ask, do people only have to pay 5 million mid-quality pearls to buy my intelligence? The faceless woman nodded softly. Of course, as long as they have money. Of course, the reason why you're so valuable is mainly because you have the C token. Excluding the intelligence on the C token, your intelligence is probably only worth 1 million mid-quality pearls. Han Fei couldn't help but smile bitterly. Could a single token be worth 4 of him? However, the intelligence on the specter had already shocked him. If they weren't tempted by the C token even though he had it, it meant that the owner of the ship was terrifying. Similarly, if they weren't tempted by the C token, it meant that the specter was indeed the safest place in the level 3 fishery as rumored. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, how much is the intelligence on the C token? Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, since the specter was so awesome, did they have the intelligence on the C token too? The faceless woman talked to the person in the window behind her for a moment and then looked back at Han Fei. The intelligence on the C token is worth 20 million mid-quality pearls. Do you need it, sir? Pooh, Han Fei almost staggered to the ground. I've swept through 12 trading halls and bought more than 4,000 spiritual fruits with only 20 million mid-quality pearls. You want 20 million for a piece of intelligence? Han Fei immediately shook his head like a rattle drum. Am I crazy? I'm spending 20 million for an answer that I'm bound to know in the future. Han Fei quickly changed his question. Where's Xia Xiaochan? The Xia Xiaochan who ranks 32nd on the wanted list. The faceless woman negotiated for a while and then turned to Han Fei. The intelligence on Xia Xiaochan costs 1 million mid-quality pearls. I'll buy it. Wait a moment. Can you check the intelligence on Zhang Xuanyu, Lu Rinquang, and Luo Xiaobai for me? It was not the time to worry about money anymore. The level 3 fishery was too dangerous. Han Fei wondered if he should try to gather his team. Then, with the strength of 5 people, they could go anywhere. However, a moment later, the faceless woman only brought 2 jade slips and said, there's only intelligence on Xia Xiaochan and Zhang Xuanyu. There's nothing special about the other 2, so there's no intelligence on them. How much is the intelligence on Zhang Xuanyu? The faceless woman said casually, only 200,000. Han Fei was lost for words. Zhang Xuanyu wasn't good enough. After such a long fuss, he was only worth 200,000. However, there was no news about Lu Rinquang and Luo Xiaobai. He wondered where they were right now. Seeing that it only cost 2 million mid-quality pearls, Han Fei paid the bill without hesitation. However, after he paid the bill, he was penniless. He had spent all the mid-quality pearls that he robbed and sold. He wondered if Old Bai would be infuriated if he told him that he had spent more than 20 million in a few hours. Han Fei was about to leave, when he suddenly thought of something and turned around. How much is the intelligence on Sun Mu, Mo Fian, and Yang Diyu worth? I only want the intelligence on their location in the level 3 fishery. Nothing else. The faceless woman nodded and sent a message through the window, before she reported, if it's just the intelligence on the level 3 fishery, it's very cheap. Because the 3 of them are not hiding, it only costs 1 million. Han Fei thought for a moment and realized that it was indeed not expensive. The 3 of them together were worth less than 1/5 of his own. What a bunch of garbage. Han Fei nodded. However, I would like to ask, what's the price of spiritual stones on the specter? There are no mid-quality pearls left. The faceless woman was stunned for a moment. Are you talking about spiritual stones? Han Fei nodded. Yes, spiritual stones. The faceless woman sat down. Outside, 1 low-quality spiritual stone can be exchanged for 10,000 mid-quality pearls. Depending on the level of spiritual stones, the exchange price is usually 5 to 10 times higher. But on the specter, 1 low-quality spiritual stone can only be exchanged for about 5,000 mid-quality pearls. It depends on the quality of the spiritual stones you provide. Han Fei frowned. How could a low-quality spiritual stone be so valuable? One low-quality spiritual stone only contained a little more than 10,000 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Can you tell me something about spiritual stones?" Han Fei pondered. Few people in the level 3 fishery knew about spiritual stones. He didn't learn about spiritual stones from books, but from the demon purification pot. Usually, he just regarded spiritual stones as a source of spiritual energy and didn't pay much attention to them. However, when he looked at the exchange rate, he noticed something different. The faceless woman communicated with the window again and looked at Han Fei. The information about spiritual stones is only 500,000 mid-quality pearls. You can buy it and read it later. Han Fei's face immediately turned gloomy. The specter was good, but it was too demanding. It's just knowledge dissemination, yet the fee is so expensive. That's too damn evil. In the end, Han Fei got the information about Sun Mu and the others and the information about spiritual stones after paying 20 low-quality spiritual stones. When he paid, Han Fei heaved a long sigh. He was too poor. However, the faceless woman said casually, "Intelligence and information seem expensive, but they are actually more valuable than pearls for those who need them. Mid-quality pearls are easy to get, but intelligence is hard to get." Han Fei snorted and acquiesced. But fortunately, he got what he wanted. He thought that if he took out the spiritual stones on the dragon boat, he probably wouldn't be able to get away. The faceless woman said, "Please come with me. Your total consumption on the specter today has reached 30 million mid-quality pearls. In case anyone is watching you, please leave through the secret passage." Chapter 387. The secret passage of the specter was like a sewer. Anyway, the conditions were not good. It was dark and narrow, and Han Fei didn't know where it led to. The faceless woman said, "Your Excellency, just go straight along the road. You can go out of any door with a villain on it. However, please conceal your knife intent. It's a bit too intense." Han Fei was briefly stunned. Why didn't he feel anything when someone said that his knife intent was too intense? He didn't think it was a big deal. Even if he did, how could he conceal it? He wouldn't. All Han Fei could do was try to calm himself down and try to be like an ordinary person. Han Fei didn't completely trust the faceless woman. Who knew what was in the passage? So, he asked the hexagon starfish telepathically, "Mr. Hexagon Starfish, is there a seal here? If I use a flash stone, can I flash out?" The hexagon starfish, who had been pretending to be a weakling, responded, "There's no smell of a seal. If there is, I can break it." Hearing the hexagon starfish's words, Han Fei nodded and walked into the long and narrow passage. After walking for about 5 kilometers, Han Fei finally saw the first door with a villain on it. However, what made him speechless was, who the hell painted this sculpture? It was simply hideous. The so-called murderer on the door was a bare-chested man with a curly beard. His eyebrows were raised and his eyes were fierce. He held a large axe in his hand and looked like he was going to chop someone up. How ugly! Han Fei didn't choose to go out from the first door. According to the faceless woman, there seemed to be a lot of doors with villains on them. So, he decided to choose a more random one. At the same time, Han Fei said to the hexagon starfish, "Mr. Hexagon Starfish, cast a concealment array on me. It's safe here." Bullshit. I don't know if it's safe outside. I've spent too much money today. I might be targeted. His shoulder wriggled, and an invisible array fell on Han Fei. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Hexagon Starfish, you're much better at arrays than I am. How long have you learned them?" "I haven't learned them yet. I just learned them." Han Fei. Han Fei didn't want to talk. Was this the benefit of inheritance? "I've been reading the spirit-gathering scripture for a year, but I still can't figure out the formation." He didn't even learn it, but he already knew it. He really didn't know what to say. About half an hour later, Han Fei walked to the door of the ninth slayer and pushed the door open. Outside, there was no way to disembark. After Han Fei went out, he found himself in a corner of the cabin. There was no one around. Han Fei secretly heaved a sigh of relief. When he was done, he turned around to take a look and muttered to the door, "How ugly." After walking a few hundred meters away, Han Fei said to the hexagon starfish, "Mr. Hexagon Starfish, let me tell you, don't pick up the golden junk next time. It's fine. Bring me to explore more secret realms. If we cooperate, we can go anywhere in the level 3 fishery." Hexagon Starfish is timid. What's the point of talking to it? While Han Fei was fooling the hexagon starfish, a hoarse and plain laughter suddenly came from the corner. In an instant, Han Fei's hair all stood on end. Had he been approached? Subconsciously, Han Fei took out the blood-drinking knife and prepared to defend himself. The other party was so close to him, but he didn't even notice him. His strength was definitely not to be underestimated. When Han Fei looked in the direction of the voice, he saw a faceless man in the corner. But what shocked Han Fei even more was that this corner was not as dark as the one he had just come out of. Even if he couldn't perceive it with his spirit, he should have seen it with his eyes. However, he had ignored this place just now. Han Fei asked warily, "Who are you?" The man laughed in a deep voice, "I'm a faceless man." Han Fei frowned. "Sorry, I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to chat." However, the man laughed and said, "Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Are you worried that I will eat you? You have the smell of the 10,000-year-old big red trunk on you." TSK. I haven't smelled it for a long time. Han Fei paused, and this time his face became extremely ugly. "What do you want?" "Sit." In a place like the Spectre, there were no so-called chairs, and it was still wet everywhere. However, the people who came here didn't care, so they had the habit of sitting on the ground. Although he had so many 10,000-year-old big red trunk, he didn't even dare to reveal the big red trunk even though he had so many 10,000-year-old big red trunk. However, this man pointed it out casually. How could Han Fei not be shocked? Han Fei paused and then sat opposite the faceless man. "What do you mean?" The faceless man laughed. "You want to kill me now? Don't worry, I'm not interested in the 10,000-year-old big red trunk. However, I'm very curious about you. Your physique actually exceeds that of a peak-level dangling fisher. How did you do it?" Han Fei snorted. "Opportunity." The man laughed. "Thousands of people are looking for opportunities, but I have never seen anyone with such a strong physique. Forget it, I don't want to ask you." "Boy, you just said the mask was ugly." "What was ugly?" Of course, Han Fei couldn't tell the truth, so he said casually, "I said the mask was ugly." However, the man shrugged slightly. "You mean the murderer carvings on the door are ugly?" Han Fei was stunned again. "Did you come out of the secret passage?" The man chuckled. "Of course. I agree. You won't believe it, but that thing is really ugly. I tried to modify it and sell it to the Spectre to make some money. But they didn't want it." Han Fei was speechless. "Are you fucking crazy? Who do you think you are? Do you think they want it just because you sell it?" However, Han Fei didn't show it on his face. He said casually, "Then keep drawing. Maybe one day you will meet the requirements of the Spectre." The man said, "Why don't you draw one too? I'll sell it for you." Han Fei said coldly, "Do you think I have nothing to do?" The man subconsciously hesitated. "I don't know if you have nothing to do, but I have nothing to do. I'm too lazy to move or go to sea. I'm already a salted fish." Han Fei said, "Why don't you continue to be a salted fish, and I'll leave first?" The man sneered. "Go ahead. Let's be friends. Boy, you're going to be in trouble." As he spoke, the man found a pen and a fish skin drawing. Han Fei stared at him speechlessly for a long time. What the hell is wrong with me? It's so weird. However, as crazy as he was, he didn't think he was an ordinary person. In fact, he found that few people who dared to come to the specter were ordinary people. This place was full of experts. Perhaps, experts thought differently from ordinary people. It was like geniuses always did things that ordinary people couldn't understand. Taking the pen, Han Fei drew in circles casually. In no more than 100 seconds, the image of a one-eyed skull with a red scarf on its head appeared on the paper. Under the skull, there were 2 pirate machetes. Yes, Han Fei had copied the pirate's standard pattern. However, it didn't matter. He didn't care about it. The faceless man exclaimed, "Interesting. Boy, you're more suitable for ghost ships." Han Fei smiled disdainfully. "I don't have the time to run ghost ships," the man smiled faintly. "Fine. You're paranoid. Let me tell you. You're going to be in trouble." Pooh, Han Fei almost chopped the faceless man's head with the kitchen knife. "I thought you were some fucking awesome guy, but you're telling me that you're going to be in trouble? Do I need you to tell me that?" Han Fei got up speechlessly. "I just did a divination for you too." "Oh." Han Fei tilted his head and said, "I told you that you're a salted fish who doesn't have any dreams. You're going to be in trouble." The faceless man. Naughty. Just when Han Fei was about to turn around, a black shadow suddenly flew over. Han Fei subconsciously caught it and took a look, only to find that it was a roll of fish skin. The faceless man smiled wickedly. "If you encounter a disaster one day, open this map and it may save your life." Han Fei muttered, "Are you crazy?" He was about to throw the fish skin away, but he didn't think it was a good idea to do so in front of the faceless man. So, Han Fei stuffed the fish skin into Forge the Universe. "Thank you. I hope you can continue to be a salted fish." Han Fei turned around and left, no longer staying. Although he was surprised by this man's strength, a strong lunatic was the scariest. Who knew what kind of crooked thoughts this guy had? Han Fei didn't stay on the specter for long. Although there might be a lot of opportunities here to fight for, he had become a pauper. He was penniless now. He didn't even have a mid-quality pearl. Behind Han Fei, the faceless man secretly smiled, closed the fish skin on the ground, and then murmured, "What a monster." Chapter 388. When Han Fei left the specter, a lot of people happened to come to the specter and he ran into 5 or 6 people head-on. However, because he was wearing a black robe and a mask, no one noticed him. When there was no one around, he quickly took off his clothes and mask and jumped into the sea. Although, in theory, he had intimidated many people with his strength. However, there were many experts on the Spectre ship, and he did not want to be recognized so quickly. Even if he could, he didn't have the time to fight. There were more important things than fighting now. At the first glimmer of dawn, a few thousand miles away, a red fishing boat was rushing on the sea, so fast that it looked like a red shadow on the sea. Some people noticed this fishing boat, but no one paid attention to it. Most people thought it was a Ghost Speed Divine boat. A small number of people knew that this was not the Ghost Speed Divine boat, but its speed seemed to be a bit faster than the Ghost Speed Divine boat. Thinking of him from the boat, no one went to provoke him. 10,000 miles away, Han Fei sat on the fishing boat with several jade slips in front of him. However, Han Fei wasn't looking at the jade slip at this moment. Instead, he was sitting cross-legged, surrounded by spiritual energy, and the 9-tailed mantis shrimp was guarding him. After a while, owner Han Fei level 36, intermediate dangling fisher, spiritual energy 12526, 5001, spiritual heritage LV5, high grade, spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 30, weapons, Blue Sea Wandering Dragon Daggers, Water Dividing Seal, Blood Drinking Knife Main Art, Void Breaking Technique, Volume 4 of Void Fishing, Demon Level, Divine Quality. As the saying went, sharpening the knife would not delay the work of cutting firewood. Improving one's spiritual meridians was extremely important. After the spiritual meridian was upgraded to upper LV5, it couldn't be upgraded anymore. However, it was a whole level higher than before. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that his body was becoming lighter and more agile. Although it was not obvious, he felt as if something had happened to him. However, the spiritual vein was a long-term thing. It could only be slightly manifested during cultivation. Han Fei had no time to pay attention to the growth of the spiritual heritage but looked at the demon purification pot. He had collected 5 creatures, and all of them were quite powerful. If he fused them, they would probably be as powerful as Little Gold and the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, or even better. Han Fei certainly wouldn't let go of this opportunity. In the demon purification pot, it was an exotic iron wall shrimp. It was a mysterious mutated devil ray. It was an exotic millennium snapper. It was an exotic mutated species, the snake-tentacled shark-faced octopus. The last one was the cowardly divine seaweed octopus. Han Fei frowned. Fuse. After waiting for a few seconds, seeing no reaction from the demon purification pot, Han Fei said again, fuse. Fuck you. Is it broken? Fuse. After waiting for a long time without any response, he suddenly noticed something. In the gray fog, the Millennium Snapper was shattering, becoming fainter and fainter until it disappeared. Han Fei frowned. The Millennium Snapper was gone just like that? Why was it gone? Suddenly, Han Fei realized that the Millennium Snapper was a human being after all. Could it be that the demon purification pot could even tell that? So, he was still short of a marine creature. Forget it. Let's just find another one. The fishery is so big and there are so many creatures. It doesn't matter if I'm late. After that, he grabbed a jade slip. The first one he paid attention to was naturally Xia Xiaochan, who seemed to be the most dangerous one. Xia Xiaochan's ranking on the wanted list was higher than his, and she had a short temper. If she really got angry, Han Fei wasn't sure who could take it. Besides, a short temper was nothing, but Xia Xiaochan's attack was really dangerous. Her combat power index was rising exponentially, which wasn't something that ordinary people could deal with. Looking at the jade slip, Han Fei was sometimes surprised, sometimes angry, and sometimes glad. There were a lot of records on the jade slip. It said that Xia Xiaochan fought with others for treasures in the Cave of Death and went deep into dangerous places. A total of 34 people went in, but only Xia Xiaochan and another person came out. However, when the other person came out, he went crazy. After Xia Xiaochan came out, she began to kill without saying a word. She summoned and fused with the giant arowana, killed 2 enemies, and then fled with heavy injuries. When he saw the word heavily injured, Han Fei was shocked. He knew that Xia Xiaochan would be weak for a while after her attack. During this period, her strength would be greatly reduced. If someone took advantage of her, it would be very dangerous. Fortunately, she escaped. But here came the problem of the giant arowana. Different from the town, the level 3 fishery seemed to have more comprehensive information. Some people said that they had seen a creature called the giant arowana in ancient books. It was a kind of sea creature from the unknown place, extremely powerful and not something that ordinary people could awaken. Based on this, the spectre speculated that Xia Xiaochan carried an unknown exotic bloodline. In addition to the spiritual heritage, the jade slip also introduced Xia Xiaochan's origin, spiritual beasts, contractual spiritual beasts, and related deduction investigations. Finally, there was a piece of information that surprised Han Fei the most. Xia Xiaochan was suspected to have obtained a divine weapon and was forced to enter the undersea city. Yes, the news that Han Fei got before was that Xia Xiaochan had appeared near the undersea city. However, the information given by the spectre was that Xia Xiaochan was forced to hide in the undersea city. This was what Han Fei was anxious about. After reading Xia Xiaochan's whereabouts, Han Fei's face was already not very good. Then, he quickly looked at Zhang Xuanyu's jade slip. It read, Zhang Xuanyu, male, 15 years old, junior dangling fisher spiritual beast, bloodthirsty shark contractual spiritual beast, golden water silkworm origin, Thug Academy, Blue Sea Town, Thousand Star City. Initial event: when Zhang Xuanyu first came to the level 3 fishery, he accidentally entered the flowstone pit and was subdued by a strong master to mine in the flowstone pit. Later, because he led the oppressed dangling fishers to fight back, he was almost killed. When he saw this, Han Fei's eyes almost popped out. Almost killed? That's terrible. If Zhang Xuanyu died, Han Fei was sure that the four of them would definitely attack the flowstone pit crazily. Fortunately, it was recorded that Zhang Xuanyu was rescued by someone, and then it was said that he blew up the flowstone pit and led 37 people to resist the oppression. Finally, he robbed those strong masters of the flowstone pit and then fled without a trace. According to the intelligence, 26 people led by Zhang Xuanyu died, and 11 of them ran away without a trace. It was said that he was being hunted. The last time he appeared was about 10,000 kilometers away from the abyssal chasm. This time, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Zhang Xuanyu's luck was not very good. However, the direction of his escape was the abyssal chasm that he was looking for. Han Fei thought that he had to go to the abyssal chasm as soon as possible. Zhang Xuanyu might not be able to withstand a terrifying place like the abyssal chasm alone. What made Han Fei helpless was that Zhang Xuanyu was too far away from him. Xia Xiaochan was fine, but the abyssal chasm was 200,000 kilometers away from where he was now. This meant that he would have to control the wind god boat for nearly 4 days without rest to reach the place where Zhang Xuanyu disappeared. According to the intelligence, Zhang Xuanyu should be in a state of fleeing at this moment, so it was impossible for him to stay in the same place for 4 days. For this reason, Han Fei immediately flipped through the records of exploration of the abyssal chasm, given to him by Yang Ruoyun. After a while, Han Fei felt a headache coming on. It was not that Yang Ruoyun lied to him. It was just that this records of exploration of the abyssal chasm was too complicated, covering hundreds of years of exploration history of the abyssal chasm. Among them, the dangerous places near the abyssal chasm had covered a radius of 50,000 kilometers. There were no less than 10 open secret realms and no less than 50 hidden secret realms. The point was that the abyssal chasm was said to be extremely dangerous. Even if he went there, it would be a problem whether he could find Zhang Xuanyu, let alone help him. Han Fei thought to himself, It's not that I don't care about friends, but the place you chose is too fucking embarrassing. Even I don't dare to go there, but you went there. After reading the intelligence of the two, Han Fei didn't immediately digest the gains on the ghost ship this time, but ran directly in the direction of the undersea city. In theory, Zhang Xuanyu should be in more danger. His ability to escape should not be as good as Xia Xiaochan's. However, Han Fei didn't ignore one thing. When Zhang Xuanyu was still a fishing master, he drifted from other towns to the Blue Sea Town. Although Zhang Xuanyu didn't seem to be so strong, Han Fei knew that this guy was not simple since he was admitted to the Thug Academy. To put it bluntly, Zhang Xuanyu was a genius, the only guy who had grown to this day by creating his own combat skills. On the way, Han Fei checked the intelligence of the Sun Mu trio. He had some doubts before. Mo Fian and Yang Diyu were definitely not Sun Mu's helpers. It was just that they seemed to have reached an agreement before. He mainly looked at Sun Mu's intelligence. As for the other two, Han Fei felt that they just had nothing to do, so they came here to meddle in his business. His original intention might not have been for himself. After a while, Han Fei was speechless. The intelligence said that Sun Mu came to the level 3 fishery to gain experience and had a business relationship with Han Fei. The intelligence only said that Sun Mu came to the level 3 fishery to gain experience and had a business relationship with Han Fei. This intelligence was very clever. It successfully avoided the real reason why the Sun family was hunting Han Fei and didn't mention any information about the sea token. This intelligence was very clever. It successfully avoided the real reason why the Sun family was hunting Han Fei and didn't mention any information about the sea token. The intelligence showed that the Sun family was a big family in the Thousand-Star City. They had a deep foundation in the level 3 fishery and there were people from the Sun family on almost every dragon boat. Of course, Han Fei guessed that the people living on the top floors of the dragon boats were probably from these big families. Therefore, there must be more than just the Sun family. There should be many people from big families. The intelligence described the process of the Sun family hunting Han Fei, including that the Sun family had lost nearly 20 peak-level dangling fishers. Han Fei himself was shocked by this number. When the hell did I kill so many people? There seemed to be only 7 or 8 people who died in my hands, right? Could it be that those guys who turned into fish were also killed by me? When Han Fei continued to read, his face became even uglier. Sun Mu actually announced that he had obtained divine weapons, extraordinary spiritual fruits, and dozens of heaven-level combat skills in the Seaborn Grassland. Divine, extraordinary, and heaven. Han Fei was speechless. Han Fei was speechless. That's just making things up. This guy is trying to build me into a moving treasure house. However, he was immediately shocked. If this was the case, then there would be no ordinary people hunting him. But what if there were still people who dared to hunt him? Then these people were definitely the strongest of the strong. In the previous battle, he killed 2 peak-level dangling fishers on the spot. Han Fei could predict that those hunting him in the future would probably all be peak-level dangling fishers. Bastard, don't let me catch you again. If I meet you again, even if I don't kill you, I'll cripple you. In the intelligence, there was also the matter that Sun Mu had arranged people to go to the undersea city. Han Fei's face became even uglier. This little bastard was too insidious. If he already knew about Xia Shaochan, then Zhang Xuanyu's matter couldn't be hidden from him. Han Fei could see through his mind at a glance. He just wanted to catch them and then use them to threaten him to hand over the sea token. Han Fei couldn't help but drive the wind god boat to the fastest speed. For others, the level 3 fishery at this moment was no different from usual, and their main purpose was to hunt for treasures and improve their strength. However, for him, Xia Shaochan, and the others, the difficulty level had been greatly increased. In the previous intelligence, it didn't say that Xia Shaochan's strength had improved. That was to say, she was still a junior dangling fisher. In this case, unless Xia Shaochan had an attack, there was almost no chance for her to compete head-on with a peak-level dangling fisher. Just when Han Fei was controlling the wind god boat to rush. On the dragon boat, someone had spent a lot of money to adjust the wanted list. Among them, the one that attracted the most attention was that Han Fei ranked 3rd on the wanted list. Chapter 389. The Seaborn Grassland was actually not close to the undersea city. The distance was about 150,000 kilometers. Even if the wind god boat didn't stop for a moment, it would take more than 2 days. In the past 2 days, Han Fei had consumed hundreds of thousands of points of spiritual energy without stopping for a moment. At the same time, he also took a look at the information related to spirit stones. It turned out that spiritual stones were actually not rare. The reason why they weren't popular in the level 3 fishery was that they weren't used in the level 3 fishery at all. Spiritual stones could be said to be a kind of currency or a kind of energy. Unlike mid-quality pearls with strong purchasing power could barely be used on dragon boats. On the ghost boat, this thing was like 1 yuan, the most basic unit of currency. According to the information, spiritual stones could be used as a high-level currency even on dragon boats. Now Han Fei knew why this information was valuable. It was not because of the value of spiritual stones, but because this information involved some common currencies in the unknown place. It turned out that in the unknown place, people usually used high-quality and ultra-quality pearls. Among them, ultra-quality pearls were almost equivalent to low-quality spiritual stones. This was also the reason why the exchange rate of low-quality spiritual stones and mid-quality pearls was so high. From the price, a place could be measured. From the information about spiritual stones, it could be guessed that the difficulty level of the unknown place was probably much higher than that of the level 3 fishery. Otherwise, how could a rare thing like spiritual stones be turned into a currency? Since it was a currency, no matter how advanced it was, in a sense, a commodity that everyone had. It was just that people had different amounts of spiritual stones because of their different abilities. Han Fei couldn't imagine how dangerous the unknown place was, where even spiritual stones had become commonplace. After all, profits were always linked to risks. However, Han Fei didn't intend to waste his spiritual stones anymore. At most, he could rob a few more people. Anyway, judging from the current situation, even if he didn't want to rob them, they would come to rob him. A day and a half later, Han Fei stopped the boat. It was not because the wind god boat consumed too much spiritual energy, but because he thought that after he arrived at the undersea city, he might face the pursuit of strong masters again. Therefore, before that, he needed to deduce the camouflage technique first. Camouflage technique, mystic level, mid-quality, remark, a disguise spell created based on the camouflage characteristics of sea creatures. In a stationary state, it could fool most people's vision. Drawback, low level, useless against spiritual perception. Deduced art, hallucination. Deduction cost, 0/30,000. Han Fei was amused when he saw the consumption of the deduction. It had been a long time since he encountered a low-level technique that only required 5 digits of spiritual energy to deduce. In just 10 breaths of time, a new cultivation method appeared. Psychedelic spell, spirit level mid-grade. Note, disguise yourself according to the hallucinatory ability of marine creatures and release hallucinatory characteristics to the outside world. Disadvantage, it's almost useless for spirit gatherers. Deduction, illusion. Deduction cost, 0/100000. Han Fei was taken aback. Almost ineffective against spirit gatherers. The next moment, he realized that all spirit gatherers had practiced pupil techniques. They could see through the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, so it was not difficult for them to see through this hallucinatory characteristic. After all, this was not an illusion. After another deduction, this psychedelic spell became the soul confusion spell and became a spirit level, divine quality 1. But the drawback was that it didn't have much influence on spirit gatherers and couldn't be foolproof. So, Han Fei continued to deduce it twice. In the end, Han Fei forcibly deduced this mystic level, mid-quality camouflage technique into the demon level, divine quality 1,000 faces technique. Although Han Fei could continue to deduce it, it was no longer necessary. 1,000 faces technique, demon level, divine quality. Note, a technique created by combining the characteristics of 1,000 kinds of marine psychedelic creatures. It can control the changes of various parts of the body by controlling the flow of spiritual energy in the body. Disadvantage, unable to control the changes of bones. Deduced art, unknown. Deduction cost, 0/10000000. Han Fei didn't want to continue the deduction. Although he could support the deduction of the 1,000 faces technique with spiritual energy, once a demon-level technique became a heaven-level technique, it would be much more difficult to deduce it. These were two completely different realms. Han Fei was afraid that once he deduced it, he would have to spend a lot of time practicing it, so he might as well do it now. Jiang Tong was a peak-level dangling fisher and was used to being alone. At this moment, he was cursing, "Damn it, what happened in the undersea city? Why did so many people suddenly pop up?" Jiang Tong hadn't boarded a dragon boat for 2 months. Before, he had discovered a secret realm and made a great profit. He had obtained a Tian-level battle skill and a high-grade spiritual staff without a sealed spirit. He was overjoyed. However, as soon as he came out of the secret realm, he ran into 3 peak-level dangling fishers and 2 advanced dangling fishers. This encounter scared him so much that he peed his pants. As a result, he was chased all the way. If it weren't for the fact that he was used to being alone, and if it weren't for the fact that his spiritual beast, the golden water snake, was extremely fast, he would have been killed. But who could have expected that he would encounter 3 groups of people on the way? Except for the first group, there were no peak-level dangling fishers. Jiang Tong gritted his teeth. It seems that I can't stay in the undersea city anymore. I have to change places quickly. To the 10,000 Smoke Valley, well. As a result, as soon as Jiang Tong took out the fishing boat, he saw a red shadow rushing at him from the sea. Ghost speed divine boat? Son of a bitch. Jiang Tong was so scared that he put away the fishing boat, dived into the water, and swam desperately to the bottom of the sea. Jiang Tong almost cried. In the level 3 fishery, there were only a few people who could afford a ghost speed divine boat. Damn it, such people were rushing at him. Why didn't he run away? Not to mention that he was a peak-level dangling fisher. Even if he was at the peak of the peak, he was still no match for these rich kids, peerless geniuses, and freaks. At this moment, Jiang Tong, who was possessed by his spiritual beast, wished he had 10 tails so that he could run faster. He regretted it. He hadn't been to the dragon boat for too long, so the flash stones on him had been used up. This time, he would definitely buy flash stones as if they were free. Huh? Han Fei exclaimed in surprise. He originally wanted to catch a person and ask for information. However, the person reacted very fast and dived into the sea in the blink of an eye. A peak-level dangling fisher. Han Fei saw that because the person was too anxious just now, after being possessed by his spiritual beast, there was a sudden acceleration. That acceleration directly caused the sea surface to rise tens of meters high. Even if he was not a peak-level dangling fisher, he should be an advanced dangling fisher or close to it. Swish! The wind god boat was put away. Attach! With little gold attached to his body, Han Fei grew a pair of wings on his back and dived directly into the water. He chased quickly along the water traces that had not yet disappeared in the water. At this moment, Han Fei's strength was not that of an ordinary intermediate dangling fisher at all. Whether it was his physique, strength, or speed, after the breakthrough of the indestructible body art, he had undergone earth-shaking changes. For a moment, a golden-red shadow in the water was as fast as lightning, chasing the green shadow ahead. He had to admit that the speed of a peak-level great fishing master was terrifying. If it was before, Han Fei wouldn't be sure, but now he was sure. The person ahead was definitely an outstanding peak-level dangling fisher. Because his speed was at least 30% faster than that of ordinary peak-level dangling fishers. If it weren't for Little Gold, even if he exerted the shadow swimming art to the extreme, he would only be able to tie with the opponent at most. After about half an hour, Han Fei finally caught up with the man. He was only a kilometer away from him. Jiang Tong was almost crying. Who the fuck did I offend? I'm just a lonely treasure hunter. I'm really just passing by. I'm leaving soon. Seeing that Han Fei was already 500 meters away, Jiang Tong suddenly gritted his teeth, paused, and threw 2 mid-quality spiritual weapons at Han Fei. Bam, 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 Han Fei was speechless. I haven't done anything to you yet. You're a peak-level great fishing master, but you still want to blow up your divine weapons to run away. And you blew up 2 of them at once? Swish! A knife light cut through the water, and the seawater turbulence and powerful impact energy caused by the explosion of 2 mid-quality spiritual weapons were cut into 2 pieces. Jiang Tong was dumbfounded. Impossible. I blew up 3 mid-quality spiritual weapons, but they didn't even stop me for 2 seconds. Jiang Tong only saw a young man landing 100 meters away from him, holding a kitchen knife in his hand. The 2 looked at each other and blinked. Jiang Tong was speechless. An intermediate dangling fisher? How is it possible? Han Fei shouted, "Hey! Why are you running when you see me?" Jiang Tong's face changed and he thought, who on earth is this person? An intermediate dangling fisher owns a ghost speed divine boat? An intermediate dangling fisher is even faster than me? An intermediate dangling fisher cut off the explosion of 2 mid-quality spiritual weapons with 1 knife? Jiang Tong didn't know Han Fei's strength, but he knew that he must not treat him as an ordinary intermediate dangling fisher. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. Jiang Tong asked, "Who are you? Why are you chasing me?" Chapter 390. At the bottom of the sea, Jiang Tong released his aura, holding a high-quality spiritual weapon in his hand and condensing a battle suit on his body. Han Fei glanced at this person weirdly. It was the first time he had seen someone in a battle suit. And this battle suit turned out to be a high-quality spiritual weapon. However, this battle suit obviously didn't match Jiang Tong's chubby body. It shouldn't be his own. Han Fei put away the blood-drinking knife and looked at Jiang Tong curiously. "You are quite strong. Can I ask you a few questions?" Jiang Tong's pupils constricted slightly. "I guessed right. This person is not simple. Facing me, not only is he not afraid, but he also looks like he has to answer my questions." Jiang Tong resisted the urge to attack and said with a sullen face, "What questions?" "You are so strong. Do you know anything about Xia Shaochan?" Jiang Tong was taken aback. "Who is Xia Shaochan?" Han Fei was also taken aback. "You don't know?" Jiang Tong asked, "Should I know?" Han Fei was silent for a while. "How long has it been since you last contacted other people?" Jiang Tong said in surprise, 2 months. "What's wrong?" Han Fei was lost for words. "Forget it. Pretend I didn't ask. Well, that's all. How about I exchange something with you?" Jiang Tong's heart suddenly tightened and he said with an ugly face, "No, my weapons and battle suits were exchanged with my life. I won't exchange them even if I die." Han Fei shrugged. "I don't want your sword and battle suit." Jiang Tong looked serious. "I won't give you my sea-swallowing seashell." Han Fei rolled his eyes at him. "I don't want your sea-swallowing seashell either." Jiang Tong was surprised. "Isn't this person here to rob me?" He couldn't help but ask, "Then what do you want?" Han Fei curled his lips and said, "How about I exchange my fishing boat with you?" "Huh?" Jiang Tong was dumbfounded and asked weakly, "You want to exchange your ghost speed divine boat with my fishing boat?" Seeing that Jiang Tong mistook his fishing boat for a ghost speed divine boat, Han Fei didn't explain but just smiled. "You wish. I'll exchange your fishing boat with a slightly more ordinary one. It may be a little worse than yours, but it can still run nearly 2,000 kilometers every hour." There were many fishing boats in the sea-swallowing seashells that Han Fei looted earlier. He had kept the one with the best condition, which was originally for the convenience of his identity. However, considering that he had to find Xia Shaochan as soon as possible, the speed of more than 2,000 kilometers was too slow. Just now, although he only caught a glimpse of it, he could tell that this person's fishing boat was of extraordinary quality and its speed was at least more than 3,000 kilometers per hour. Jiang Tong's face turned gloomy again. "So, you want to rob me of my boat?" Han Fei curled his lips. "How can you call it robbery? It's just a Jianghu emergency." Han Fei smiled, and then his face turned cold. "You don't want to give it to me?" Jiang Tong felt that 10,000 iron-head fish were galloping in his heart. "You're robbing me." "I'm not angry yet, why did you change your face?" Jiang Tong was used to being alone. Seeing Han Fei's aggressive posture, he said angrily, "I admit that you are strong, but do you think you can beat me?" "Hey!" Han Fei grinned and disappeared with a swoosh. Jiang Tong was stunned, only to see dozens of spiritual weapons appear around Han Fei in an instant. At that time, He was speechless. A rich prodigal. Jiang Tong didn't want to be outdone. Although Han Fei had a lot of spiritual weapons, their quality was not good. So he slashed the long sword forward, and suddenly the long sword split into countless sword shadows. At this moment, under the sea, sword chi and knife light flashed, making clanking sounds. 9-star chain. Doppelganger. Han Fei was looking triumphantly at the 9-star chain buckling a figure, but the next second, he couldn't laugh anymore. This guy can even doppelganger. However, Han Fei soon recognized it. With his pupil technique, he could see through the supply of spiritual energy and easily distinguish the real from the fake. Obviously, although Jiang Tong's combat skill was surprising, its level was not high. It should be around spirit level ultra quality or demon level low quality. Water stirring seal technique. Han Fei held a big seal in one hand and smashed it at Jiang Tong. But the latter suddenly attached to his contractual spiritual beast and flashed away in the blink of an eye. Wasn't this combat skill similar to Xia Xiaochan's flash? In Han Fei's ear, the hexagon starfish said, "It's the power of the fallen leaf starfish." Han Fei said, "Tell me where he will flash next time." Jiang Tong said, "You are not weak, but you can't kill me. What do you think? Let's go our separate ways and not interfere with each other." Ha! When Han Fei attacked again, Jiang Tong flashed away again. But this time, he was not as lucky as the last time. As soon as Jiang Tong appeared, he saw a fierce and explosive knife light, just dozens of meters in front of him. Sword and shield. Bim, puff. Jiang Tong was directly sent flying. He still wanted to escape, but suddenly he found that a purple beam of light rose around him. Array? Yes, this array was the hexagon starfish's 6-gate array. Han Fei liked this array very much, but it was a pity that this was an inherited array of the hexagon starfish, which was exclusive and others couldn't learn it. Before Jiang Tong counterattacked, a big net was cast down. Seeing this net, Jiang Tong cried. "This is fucking cheating. How can I fight this battle? There is a trap array and a spirit forbidden net, and the opponent is very strong. If it weren't for the battle suit on him, he would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die." Han Fei tilted his head and looked at Jiang Tong in the net. "Look, I told you to exchange with me. You should have exchanged with me earlier." Jiang Tong smiled bitterly. "Brother, you are such a big shot. Why do you want to embarrass a small character like me?" Han Fei grinned. "I have to say, your method is very weird. You're the only one who survived my drawing technique. I'll give you a chance. Give me the boat and the battle suit, and I'll let you go." Jiang Tong's face stiffened. "My battle suit," Han Fei interrupted, "I can also take it away if I kill you." "Okay." Han Fei was very surprised. He didn't expect the other party to agree so readily. However, he just smiled faintly. In the face of life and death, the battle suit was nothing. After putting away the spirit forbidden net, Jiang Tong suddenly bounced up, the battle suit floating in front of him, and said coldly, "I can give you the boat, but not the battle suit. If you want to rob me, I will blow myself up now." Han Fei really wanted to slap himself. He was not a bloodthirsty person by nature, so he really didn't want to kill this person. He thought to himself, with the spirit forbidden net here, this person should be scared. However, as soon as he put away the net, this person was going to blow himself up. Han Fei was speechless. Of course, he knew that there was a gap between peak-level dangling fishers. Although this person in front of him was not as strong as Sun Mu and the other two, he was probably not much weaker. If the other party was determined to blow himself up, he might not be able to resist it. Han Fei waved his hand and said, "Forget it, keep the battle suit. Give me the boat, and we'll go our separate ways." Jiang Tong's eyes flickered. Han Fei's strength was completely beyond his imagination. Besides, the other party even had the spirit forbidden net. He couldn't be an ordinary person at all. He had only seen the spirit forbidden net before. The value of a spirit forbidden net was probably comparable to that of an ultra-quality spiritual weapon, or even more precious. Okay. Although Jiang Tong was reluctant, he wouldn't fight with Han Fei over a fishing boat. Otherwise, in the end, the battle suit and spiritual sword he had just obtained were all blown up, which would be a big loss. On the sea, Jiang Tong still kept the battle suit floating, ready to blow himself up at any time. At this moment, 2 fishing boats were floating on the sea. Han Fei stood on Jiang Tong's fishing boat without hesitation, and then rolled his eyes and said, "Hey, brother, you don't seem to be weak. Let's do something big together, how about it?" Jiang Tong shook his head with a black face. "No." Han Fei said, "Don't. Let me tell you, as long as you deal with it properly, you can easily get millions of mid-quality pearls." Jiang Tong sneered. "Brother, although I'm a loner, I actually know everything. The reason why you want to exchange fishing boats with me is that you want to do something special. You can't use the Ghost Speed Divine boat, and ordinary fishing boats are too slow. You don't even dare to use the Ghost Speed Divine boat. How dare I go with you? Unless my head is pinched by a sea-swallowing seashell." Han Fei was speechless. "Fuck, you're playing too much in your head." Han Fei said, "Don't worry. Let me tell you, they are all intermediate and advanced dangling fishers. It's easy to beat them." Jiang Tong glanced at Han Fei. "Don't lie to me. I have been chased many times along the way, and there are peak-level dangling fishers everywhere. You want to go? Go by yourself." Han Fei was shocked. "Fuck, there are peak-level dangling fishers everywhere?" Han Fei was shocked. Fortunately, Jiang Tong told him. Otherwise, he really wouldn't know. Fortunately, he had been more cautious and didn't control the Wind God boat to charge straight in. Otherwise, he might have been surrounded again. Seeing that Jiang Tong was about to control the fishing boat to leave, Han Fei quickly shouted, "Brother, don't go. What's your name? I'll return the fishing boat to you later." Jiang Tong was stunned. "Did I run into a psychopath? He's robbing me." Han Fei said disdainfully, "Do you think I like your fishing boat? I said I borrowed it. I'll return you a better one when I have time. No need." Chapter 391. Hearing Jiang Tong's words, Han Fei's first reaction was that Xia Xiaochan's appearance here had attracted a lot of people's attention. Therefore, a large number of peak-level dangling fishers appeared nearby. However, Han Fei thought about it carefully. So many peak-level dangling fishers didn't find her. If it were him, it might not be so easy to find her. In this case, Han Fei felt that he wasn't in a hurry to find Xia Xiaochan. He might as well use this time to digest and absorb the spiritual fruits on him. It wouldn't be too late to set off when he found the people in this sea area. Thinking of this, Han Fei looked at the vigilant Jiang Tong and said with a smile, "Okay, then you can go. Since you don't want this boat, I won't embarrass you." Jiang Tong didn't leave his name in the end. He was not stupid. He had already regarded Han Fei as a heavenly talent of a certain big family. He was not related to Han Fei, so why did he expose his name? Seeing Jiang Tong quickly control the fishing boat to leave, Han Fei didn't stop him. In his ears, the hexagon starfish said, "This person seems to have something good on him. I can feel it." Han Fei was speechless. "Why didn't you tell me just now? This person has already left. What's the point of telling me now?" The hexagon starfish's eyes rolled. "It's a little dangerous, so I didn't tell you." Han Fei's eyes narrowed slightly. A little dangerous? Anything that could make the hexagon starfish feel a little dangerous must be very dangerous. It seemed that it was the right choice not to force this person to stay just now. Although there were some regrets in this robbery, it could be regarded as a perfect success. Not only because he got a fishing boat, but more importantly, because of the information Jiang Tong just mentioned, there were many peak-level dangling fishers here. One day later. From a certain rock on the seabed, a man climbed up from the bottom, looking indescribably energetic. If Li Hani were here, he would definitely exclaim, "Who the hell is pretending to be me?" Originally, Han Fei asked Jiang Tong's name because he wanted to pretend to be him, but on second thought, Jiang Tong was a peak-level dangling fisher. If he was exposed, the consequences would not be good, so he could only settle for the second best. Because Han Fei didn't know many people, he could only use Li Hani to make up the number. He swam out of the sea and threw a spirit fruit into his mouth. Looking at the boundless ocean, Han Fei grinned. Well, except that I'm a little shorter than him, I shouldn't be too far behind. With that, Han Fei took out the rusty rod from Forge the Universe. It wasn't that he didn't want to remove the rust and the uneven stones on the stick. In fact, he had tried many times, but it was to no avail. He even wanted to drip a drop of blood to bind it to him, but the rod didn't respond to him at all. Therefore, he could only carry this rod that was heavier than the Jingu Bang on his shoulder. It was exactly because he had broken the cultivation barrier of the indestructible body that he could carry this stick so easily at this moment. If it was anyone else, they would probably be pressed down to the point of being unable to walk. Hey, you don't want to cooperate? Fine, if you have the ability, then don't cooperate. From now on, I will call you Embroidery Needle. Other people call them iron rods and iron rods, while you call them embroidery needles. Still not cooperating? Embroidery needle, embroidery needle. If you cooperate, I will call you the best rod in the world. After trying for a long time, Han Fei saw that this damn rod didn't respond at all, so he snorted heavily. Embroidery needle. Han Fei took out his fishing boat and went all the way. At this time, he was brazen and unscrupulous. After rushing all the way for half a day, Han Fei encountered a fishing boat. Stop! There was an armorist standing on the fishing boat, staring at Han Fei's fishing boat with all his might. The man shouted, "Brother, where are you from?" Carrying the embroidery needle on his shoulder, Han Fei suddenly moved sideways and swept to the left. A figure was retreating quickly, and Han Fei's feet had been entangled by a purple vine. He swung down, and the embroidery needle flicked, and a slender figure was directly pulled out of the water with a huge force. Seeing that the attack failed, the three people on the ground immediately gathered and looked at Han Fei in surprise. The female manipulator looked puzzled. "You are not an ordinary soul warrior." Han Fei scoffed. "Do you think I am easy to bully?" On the ground, the armorist hurriedly said, "Brother, don't get me wrong. We just want to test you." Han Fei sneered. "Misunderstanding? Why don't you explain to me what misunderstanding this is?" The armorist said with a smile, "Brother, let's not beat around the bush. Don't you know that demon hunting is going on in the undersea city?" Han Fei frowned. "Demon hunting? What demon hunting?" Of course, on the surface, Han Fei held his head high and said, "Of course, otherwise why would I come here to take the risk?" The armorist said, "Hey. That's right. Whether we catch Xia Shaochan or Han Fei, we'll make a profit. We just want to test you. You, an intermediate dangling fisher, also want to take the risk? Aren't you afraid of being hacked to death?" Han Fei rolled his eyes. "What am I afraid of? Although I look like an intermediate great fishing master, I am strong, have strong combat skills, and I am also a soul warrior. But you, although the three of you are all advanced dangling fishers, you want to hunt Xia Shaochan and Han Fei without any peak-level dangling fishers?" The cold-hearted hunter snorted and asked back, "We are at least advanced dangling fishers. Whether you have the strength of an advanced dangling fisher or not, you shouldn't be here, right?" Han Fei sneered. "I'm just here to pick up the loot. What does it have to do with an intermediate dangling fisher like me? I guess they won't be so free to attack an intermediate dangling fisher like me." Why can't I come? The three people on the opposite side were taken aback. What he said makes sense. Whether it was Han Fei or Xia Shaochan, would they really care about an intermediate dangling fisher? The answer was definitely not. Even they thought they could easily rob Han Fei just now, let alone someone like Han Fei. Who could have expected that the other party's reaction was so sharp? His strength was not weak at all. The armorist said with a smile, "Brother, to tell you the truth, we were originally led by two peak-level dangling fishers. Unfortunately, the three of us were abandoned on the way. Brother, you are not weak either. Why don't you join us?" Han Fei almost laughed out loud. After being abandoned, they were still in the mood to wander here. These people's brains must have been clamped, right? Han Fei ignored them. "I'm not going to join you. The goal of 4 people was much bigger than my goal of 1 person. Do you think I'm stupid?" The female manipulator squinted at Han Fei. "It's better than you, an intermediate dangling fisher. No matter how strong you are just an intermediate dangling fisher. When the battle starts, do you know how many people are waiting to pick up the loot? Do you think you, an intermediate dangling fisher, can compete with them? No matter how strong you are, how many people can you beat?" Han Fei said disdainfully, "Do you think I can beat others just because I'm with you?" The female manipulator nodded. "At least we have a greater chance of survival. As long as we find a spirit gatherer, we can have all 5 professions." Han Fei suddenly had an idea. "Why don't we sneak in and have a try?" Han Fei looked a little hesitant. "Where can we find a spirit gatherer? Which spirit gatherer dares to come here alone?" The armorist laughed and said, "Then let's just grab one. The 4 of us are equivalent to 4 advanced dangling fishers. Can't we rob a spirit gatherer?" Han Fei chuckled in his heart. "If it weren't for the fact that I don't want to expose my identity now, I would have killed you already." Han Fei's expression changed. "Okay, but let's make it clear that I won't fight Han Fei. I'm here to find Xia Shaochan." "Ha ha ha. Of course, in fact, we are all here to find Xia Shaochan. Who really dares to hunt someone like Demon Han? Are we going to kill him with just a few advanced dangling fishers?" The armorist invited him generously, and Han Fei put away the fishing boat, not afraid that they would suddenly betray him. If they really betrayed him, he would just chop them up. To Han Fei's surprise, these people really didn't intend to fight him. When Han Fei approached them, he vaguely felt that all 3 of them seemed to be a little injured. It seemed that they had just experienced a battle not long ago. Han Fei didn't point it out but said with a smile, "How are we going to find them?" The manipulator said, "We're not in a hurry to find them. We don't have a spirit gatherer, and we don't have enough spiritual energy to support the battle. We might as well wait." Next to him, the hunter said, "Little brother, what's your name?" Han Fei looked at him with a faint smile. "What about you? What's your name?" Armorist Zhao Wu, his spiritual beast is Ice Flame Turtle, and his contractual spiritual beast is Purple Soldier Crab. Hunter Zhou Kai, his spiritual beast is Red-Browed Shrimp, and his contractual spiritual beasts are Butterfly Star Worm and Goldwater Silkworm. Manipulator Wang Qingyue, his spiritual beast is Sea Green Vine, and his contractual spiritual beast is Red Fox Fish. After that, all 3 of them looked at Han Fei, as if threatening him. Han Fei knew that some of them were telling the truth, but he didn't care. Anyway, he wasn't going to tell the truth. Han Fei said, "Soul Warrior Li Hani, his spiritual beast is Hexagon Starfish, and no contractual spiritual beasts. If Li Hani were here, he would definitely take out his turtle shield and smash Han Fei to death. If you want to impersonate me, then impersonate me. Why do you have to impersonate me?" The other 3 people all changed their expressions. Hexagon Starfish? Why haven't I heard of it? No contractual spiritual beasts. Han Fei said casually, "They all died in battle, but I haven't found a suitable one yet." Chapter 392. Han Fei said that his contractual spiritual beast had died in battle, which didn't arouse their suspicions. In their eyes, this seemed to be a very normal thing. After all, Han Fei was a soul warrior. For this kind of profession, it was normal for his contractual spiritual beast to die. However, they were all puzzled. They had never heard of a spiritual beast before. Although the hexagon starfish was a mysterious creature, it was timid and treasure-loving. Generally, it wouldn't appear in ordinary places, so there were few rumors about it in the sea. Besides, because of its low combat power, the hexagon starfish usually wouldn't come out. What if it was caught as a contractual spiritual beast? When Han Fei revealed the hexagon starfish on his shoulder, the three people in front of him were dumbfounded. What could a small starfish do? Han Fei snorted coldly. Although we're a temporary team, you can try if you want to take advantage of me. I may not be able to kill all three of you, but it should be no problem for me to kill two of you. The three of them were shocked, and then the armorist Zhao Wu smiled and said, "Brotherly, what are you thinking? We are teammates now. How can we rob you? We are just surprised." Wang Qingyue said, "Okay, now we only need a spirit gatherer. Shall we wait here or take the initiative to find those people?" Zhou Kai said lightly, "Take the initiative to find them. I don't know when we will wait here." Han Fei wondered, "Wait a minute. Take the initiative to find them. Where can we find them?" Zhao Wu smiled and said, "Brotherly, you have just arrived. In fact, the situation in the undersea city is treacherous now. A large number of peak-level dangling fishers have led teams here. At this moment, they are probably gathered outside the undersea city. As long as we rush over, we should be able to find a lot of lone advanced dangling fishers." Han Fei frowned. "Why?" Zhou Kai snorted. "Why? It's just that the peak-level dangling fishers think we advanced dangling fishers are a bit weak, so they always form their own teams and ignore us." Han Fei understood. So, these people were the reason why they were abandoned. However, this was good. They were neither strong nor weak. His realm was not high enough, so he might not be able to join the circle of peak-level dangling fishers. The undersea city was nearly 6,000 miles long and 4,000 miles wide. It was a veritable giant city. There had always been rumors about this place, and there were many versions. First of all, this was a huge square city surrounded by towering city walls. In the north, south, east, and west directions, there was a city gate, also known as a pass. After passing through these 4 gates, one would be able to enter the city. It was said that there was an inner pass in the city, also known as the inner city. Only after passing through the inner city gate would one be considered to have truly entered the underwater city wall. But what was in the outer city and inner city of the undersea city? Then there would be many versions. Some people said that there were many creatures of darkness in the city. What were creatures of darkness? It was a creature similar to the dark water rat that walked in the darkness. These creatures were usually cruel and bloodthirsty. Some people said that there were many small secret realms in the city. While exploring, one would unknowingly be drawn into a secret realm. Many people never came out again because of this. No one knew if he was alive or dead. It was also said that there were a lot of valiant spirits in the undersea city, which were the souls of dead creatures. They howled day and night and would actively attack invading humans. There were too many versions about the undersea city. But what the official version meant was that these messy rumors were actually true. No one knew when this undersea city was left behind in prehistoric times. Anyway, anything could appear in it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be these so-called rumors. Han Fei didn't talk much along the way. Usually, he wouldn't ask Zhao Wu and the other two anything. Because he was too unfamiliar with this place, if he accidentally said the wrong thing, he might be exposed. Zhao Wu, on the other hand, seemed to be a person who couldn't stay still. He was always chattering away. Originally, Han Fei didn't know much about the undersea city, but after listening to him, Han Fei felt that he had learned a lot. At this moment, Zhao Wu started to ramble. Actually, if we really meet Han Fei or Xia Shaochan, we won't fight either of them. How dangerous is it to fight them? Neither of them is easy to deal with. In my opinion, it's not bad for us to form a team and explore the undersea city. Some people often get opportunities from it and then soar to the sky. Wang Qingyue scoffed. Shut up. How many people go into the undersea city every day? How many of them can come out with opportunities? Zhou Kai laughed. Actually, it's not bad to hunt those who are alone. As long as you have money, you can buy opportunities on the dragon boat. Han Fei looked at the two of them contemptuously, his face full of disdain. Humph, can the opportunities you get on the dragon boat let you fight dozens of people alone? Can the opportunities in the undersea city let you fight people of higher levels? My goal is clear. I can't beat Han Fei, so I'm here to find Xia Shaochan. If you don't go, I can just form a new team. Zhao Wu hurriedly said, No, brotherly, I'm just kidding. Our goal is clear, which is Xia Shaochan. But what if Han Fei and Xia Shaochan meet up? Han Fei asked in confusion, can they meet in such a place? Wang Qingyue smiled and said, the possibility is still very small. After all, the two of them were not in the same place at the beginning. It's almost impossible for them to meet up in such a huge undersea city. But who knows? If the two of them meet up, I won't fight them. Zhou Kai shrugged. No way. Leave it to those peak-level dangling fishers. Han Fei nodded secretly. It seems that being on the wanted list has its benefits. It seems that it's quite scary. But then again, it makes sense. There were only 100 people on the wanted list in the level 3 fishery. As a result, he and Xia Shaochan occupied 2 spots. If the 2 masters on the wanted list met up, he would definitely be very scared. Outside the undersea city. When they were about 10,000 kilometers away from the undersea city, Han Fei and the others had already encountered other teams frequently. Among them, the perfect combination of teams accounted for as many as half. During this period, there were also many teams trying to approach Han Fei and the others. However, after seeing that Han Fei and the others also had 3 advanced dangling fishers, they hesitated and didn't take action. If it weren't for Xia Shaochan and Han Fei, the 2 big prey, Han Fei felt that his team would be wiped out before they could even get close to the undersea city. Zhou Kai's face was ugly. There are more people coming than we thought. Wang Qingyue nodded. Yes. However, these people may not necessarily come for Xia Shaochan. I see that many of their teams have peak-level dangling fishers. They should be here for Han Fei. Han Fei asked, how do they know that Han Fei will definitely come? Immediately, the 3 of them looked at Han Fei. You don't know? Han Fei was slightly stunned. What the hell should I know? Han Fei shrugged. I don't know. I've been chasing Xia Shaochan from beginning to end. Han Fei, I can't beat him. Why should I pay attention to him? Zhao Wu breathed a sigh of relief. Brotherly, this is too unprofessional. These 2 have a lot to do with each other. It was said that the 2 of them were old sweethearts, young lovers, and had an affair. When one party is in trouble, the other party will definitely come to help. Pooh, Han Fei staggered and almost fell on the fishing boat. Seeing the 3 people's strange expressions, Han Fei couldn't help but pretend to stare and say, damn, it's not in the intelligence. Then if I kill Xia Shaochan, will I still be chased by Han Fei? Everyone, Wang Qingyue rolled her eyes and said, hey, hey, hey. Wake up, don't dream. Although we admit that you are not weak, do you want to kill Xia Shaochan? What are you thinking? Do you think you can kill anyone on the wanted list just because you want to? Han Fei chuckled and was speechless. Why are they a couple? Where the hell did these people get the news? When they were thousands of kilometers away from the undersea city, there were obviously more fishing boats here. Every dozens of kilometers, there was one or even more. Han Fei even saw a dozen fishing boats fighting in the distance. There were peak-level dangling fishers fighting, and a group of advanced dangling fishers and intermediate dangling fishers were fighting fiercely. Zhou Kai said, "Let's go. I don't want to participate in this kind of battle." Wang Qingyue controlled the fishing boat to leave quickly. Seeing that Han Fei seemed to be very interested, she couldn't help but ask, "Only soul warriors like you like fighting best? In a place like the Undersea City, the more you gain, the more dangerous it will be." Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth and said, "It's easy to pick up the loot." Zhao Wu chuckled. "Pick up the loot? Do you know how many people want to pick up the loot? But we have a big goal. What if we get injured here?" Han Fei said angrily, "Forget it, let's go. Hurry up and find the spirit gatherers. Otherwise, who knows when we'll be betrayed by others." Everyone nodded. In this place where people gathered, it was very dangerous if they were not a perfect team. 1 hour later. Wang Qingyue said, "The south gate of the Undersea City is ahead. Be careful, be strong." After a moment, Han Fei and the others finally arrived at the sea area above the south gate of the Undersea City. Han Fei looked around. There were no less than 1,000 fishing boats scattered everywhere, and he immediately took a breath. He thought to himself, "I still underestimated this place. If I come here rashly, I will be killed in minutes. After all, no matter how strong I am, I can't kill so many fishing boats alone." Chapter 393. On the tranquil sea, thousands of fishing boats were scattered and noisy. Zhou Kai chuckled. "We're finally here. Even peak-level dangling fishers don't dare to attack here." Wang Qingyue nodded. "This is an unwritten rule. Once a peak-level dangling fisher attacks an intermediate or advanced dangling fisher here, he will be attacked by everyone." Han Fei understood. This so-called unwritten rule should be formed spontaneously by intermediate or advanced dangling fishers to prevent being hunted. As the saying went, strength in numbers. Even peak-level dangling fishers couldn't do anything about it. "I want an advanced dangling fisher armorist. Anyone interested, come quickly. I want an advanced dangling fisher spirit gatherer. No intermediate dangling fisher spirit gatherer. I want an advanced dangling fisher manipulator and a hunter, led by a peak-level dangling fisher spirit gatherer. I want a team of all peak-level dangling fishers and a soul warrior. Hurry up." Intelligence. The latest intelligence about Han Fei and Xia Shaochan. Honest to all. You can't afford to lose or be fooled by a yellow croaker. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Why is this place so lively? Are these people not afraid of betrayal? Why are they looking for people so casually? Before Han Fei figured out the reason, he heard Zhao Wu shouting, "I want an advanced dangling fisher spirit gatherer. If not, I'll call again later." Less than a minute after Zhao Wu shouted, a fishing boat drove over. On the bow, an advanced dangling fisher spirit gatherer looked at them and then looked at Han Fei. Why is the soul warrior an intermediate dangling fisher? Han Fei put the embroidery needle on his shoulder. Because most advanced dangling fishers are no match for me. The man looked at him for a while and then drove the fishing boat away, as if he didn't believe what Han Fei said. "Han Fei," Wang Qingyue said, "you have to show them your strength." Zhao Wu asked, "Brotherly, why don't you ask for a fight?" Han Fei was puzzled. "Ask for a fight?" Zhou Kai asked, "You've never asked for a fight?" Wang Qingyue and the others frowned. Why didn't Li Honey, a soul warrior, ask for a fight? How could Han Fei know what a challenge was? But at this moment, they were already in a crowded area, so they couldn't expose themselves. Han Fei snorted and said, "I've been fighting in secret realms all my life. I don't know your rules. It was just exploring a mystic realm. What the fuck could it be if they were just chattering and trembling in fear? Tell me, what is seeking a battle? Zhou Kai and the rest were skeptical. In the end, the three of them exchanged glances. Zhao Wu smiled and said, "It's to send out a dual invitation and designate an expert of the same level, the same profession, or even a different profession. Now, your strength as an intermediate dangling fisher is not recognized. You have to challenge an advanced dangling fisher and show them your strength." Han Fei glanced at the three of them. It seemed that a fight was inevitable. Otherwise, he would be suspected of his purpose. Most of the people who frequented the level 3 fishery should know the rules, but he didn't. Han Fei carried the embroidery needle, jumped to the water, and then raised his head and shouted, "Li Hani, ask for a fight here. None of the advanced dangling fishers here are strong enough to fight." Huh? Where did this idiot come from? Oh. An intermediate dangling fisher? Does he want to challenge someone of a higher level? Is this man crazy? Zhao Wu and the other two were stunned. "We just asked you to ask for a fight, not to provoke us. Look, what have you done?" In one sentence, he had offended all the advanced dangling fishers here. However, Han Fei didn't know it at all. Carrying a rusty stick, he glared at them and looked like he deserved a beating. "Hey! Boy, you are only an intermediate dangling fisher. Go back to where you came from. We are afraid that we will beat you to death as soon as we fight." "Ha, little brat, why don't you go to heaven? Hey, you'd better find an intermediate dangling fisher to fight. Even an advanced dangling fisher can't beat you." Ha ha ha. For a time, the sound of banter, laughter, and cursing lingered around. And Han Fei also raised his head. "Is there no one who dares to fight me? A group of advanced dangling fishers don't even dare to fight me. Go back to the ordinary fishery and catch fish and shrimps." As soon as Han Fei said so, he saw a boy jump out. He was also a soul warrior and used double knives. At this time, the boy was looking at Han Fei with a sneer. "I'll fight you." Han Fei responded with a smile. "Okay." However, the moment this boy jumped out, many advanced dangling fishers cursed him as an idiot. Someone said in a low voice, "How stupid is that? An intermediate dangling fisher wants to fight an advanced dangling fisher? How dare he shout that he has no ability? Where did this idiot come from? Why did he jump out like a fool?" Someone clicked his tongue and said, "He may not necessarily lose, but even if he wins, it will not be easy. Instead, it will be a gift to Li Hani." Han Fei smiled and carried his stick. "Come on, do you want me to give you a handicap?" The boy snorted. "You will know that there is an insurmountable gap between intermediate and advanced dangling fishers." As soon as the boy's double knives left his hands, he took out double knives again, which showed that he was quite good at mental control. For knives, cutting through the waves, swept up fine water droplets, and pounced at Han Fei. Han Fei still carried his stick and watched with a smile. "Hey, don't you want to summon your spiritual beasts?" "Humph." Just when the four knives approached, suddenly, from above the boy's head, another knife suddenly shot straight at Han Fei's face in a more violent manner. "Ha, a one-horned shark." Someone recognized it. At that glance, they recognized that it was the exclusive attack of the one-horned shark. It turned out that the boy's four knives were just a disguise, and his real strength was actually this one-horned shark's attack. But Han Fei suddenly stomped on the water, and a big pit appeared on the water surface. Without any fancy moves, he directly threw out the embroidery needle in his hand with the simplest spiritual energy explosion. Just a spiritual energy explosion? Behind him, Zhao Wu and the other two were speechless. Isn't Han Fei too fucking arrogant? Bam! With a bang, the water surface exploded, and a stick 2 or 3 meters thick was carried on Han Fei's shoulder. And the boy was directly smashed into the water by a pillar. Ah! A stick. Han Fei slowly changed the embroidery needle back. Although he couldn't refine this rod, it was not a problem for him to have some basic abilities to change the size of the rod. The boy didn't expect that Han Fei's stick would be so heavy. In any case, at that moment, he felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. Although he still had dozens of combat skills, he couldn't use them at all. After all, he couldn't even take one hit. In the distance, many peak-level dangling fishers were slightly surprised. What a domineering power. This boy has great strength. What a strong physique. It seems that he is also a heavenly talent. When the boy emerged from the bottom of the sea again, his face was pale, his hands drooped, and he was glaring at Han Fei fiercely. You are not an intermediate dangling fisher. Han Fei laughed. Yes, I am. However, I am not a soul warrior who cultivates combat skills. I am a soul warrior who cultivates physical strength. It's just a matter of hitting you with a stick. The boy's face turned blue and then red. This time he was so humiliated. He couldn't even resist a casual blow from an intermediate dangling fisher. How could he be so shameless? Zhao Wu and the other two looked at each other and were overjoyed. They didn't expect that the soul warrior they randomly picked up on the road was so strong. Of all the cultivation methods, physique was the most difficult to cultivate. And Han Fei turned out to be the kind that specialized in physique. It was simply a miracle that such a person could become an intermediate dangling fisher. While the others were still stunned, Zhao Wu hurriedly said, "We still need an advanced dangling fisher spirit gatherer. Who wants to join us? Let me do it." A spirit gatherer came to express his recognition of Han Fei's strength. And the spirit gatherer who had just despised Han Fei didn't move and said with a dark face that he was too embarrassed to go over. "Hey, I'm one step away from the peak level. I'll join your team." "Why are you only one step away?" "You are obviously 2 levels behind, but I am only 1 step behind." For a time, Han Fei's team became popular. All the people present were smart. In the battle, only 2 people could really fight, one was a soul warrior and the other was an armorist. Han Fei's physique was so strong that few advanced dangling fishers present could surpass him. It was precisely because of this that many spirit gatherers expressed their recognition and came to join him. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.